Chapter 2451. She originally planned to write down the immortal secret manuals in her mind after leaving Mercenary City and give some to Hu Zhan and the others for them to cultivate. At that time, when their foundation was sufficient, Hu Zhan and the others' strength would also be greatly improved. After all, Hu Zhan and the others only lacked a little bit of foundation and resources compared to the children of those big families. And among them, foundation was the most important. Hu Zhan and the others could earn resources by themselves. With foundation, what resources couldn't they want to improve their strength? But without foundation, Hu Zhan and the others couldn't go to other places to get those cultivation methods and secret manuals. Ordinary cultivation methods and secret manuals, as long as they were good, were the treasures of the big families and sections. If Hu Zhan and the others didn't join those sects and families, they wouldn't be able to get them at all. Even if they were lucky enough to get them, once they revealed it after cultivating and were found out by others, it would be a dead end. But the cultivation methods and secret manuals that Luo Qingtong taught them were different. They were engraved by her from those cultivation sects on Earth. In this different world, they were unique and weren't afraid of being found out at all. During this period of time, Hu Zhan, Guifeng, and the others took good care of her. Logically speaking, Luo Qingtong couldn't just watch them make a move. What's more, these cultivation methods and secret manuals were the reward she wanted to repay them from the beginning. Luo Qingtong thought and immediately brought Hu Zhan and Guifeng back to the Red Flame mercenary group's encampment. The latter and the others were confused for a while. Ouyang Yingyu and the others were still waiting for news in the square outside. Seeing a group of high-ranking mercenary groups come out in high spirits, they thought they had encountered such a good thing. But looking at Hu Zhan and Guifeng's sad expressions, they felt that something was wrong. What's going on? Are you all crying at a funeral? Ouyang Yingyu looked at Hu Zhan and Guifeng with a strange expression. Hu Zhan was fine, this guy was born with a screw loose in his head. But what was going on with Guifeng? Their leader had always been the most calm. Everyone stared at the two of them. Hu Zhan looked at them and was about to speak. On the other side, Luo Qingtong's voice sounded in their ears. Brother Gu, this is for you. After Luo Qingtong returned to the Red Flame mercenary group's encampment, she started to spread out the rice paper and started to write. Her background was too complicated, and it wasn't convenient for her to tell Guifeng and the others, so she directly wrote down the cultivation techniques and secret manuals that she had prepared for them. Her blood-red pupils spun rapidly. Luo Qingtong copied all the mysterious methods and matters of cultivation in those secret manuals on white paper. In just a short while, there were several cultivation methods, secret manuals, and martial skills piled up beside her. Luo Qingtong handed these cultivation methods and martial skills to Guifeng and the others. The latter and the others were still blaming themselves. Just as he was about to ask her what it was, he suddenly froze. This is... Guifeng's voice trembled. He looked at the books that Luo Qingtong had just written, and there was still ink on the paper. His heart was filled with indescribable shock and excitement. Little Seven, we are sorry. This is... Hu Zhan also came over at this time, wanting to apologize to Luo Qingtong. However, when he came in front of Guifeng, his eyes widened in an instant. Chapter 2452. Oh my God! He pinched his thigh fiercely, and after a heart-wrenching pain for a while, he finally believed that everything in front of him was not a dream, but real. Oh my God! These martial arts manuals are all real. Hu Zhan looked at the martial arts manuals handed over by Luo Qingtong and laughed dryly. He almost wanted to ask Luo Qingtong if she wrote them casually for fun. However, before he could say anything, he slapped himself and woke himself up. What the hell was she writing casually? If she hadn't already memorized them by heart, even if she flew, she wouldn't have been able to recite all these martial arts manuals. The only explanation was that these martial arts manuals were all real. Moreover, Luo Qingtong knew how to use them all. Therefore, she was able to write them down from memory for them. Golden Sword Chop. World Return to One Technique. Mandarin Duck Twin Sword. No Heart and No Nonsense Technique. One by one, the names of the martial arts manuals jumped into Hu Zhan's eyes. All of them were martial arts manuals and names that he had never heard of before. Moreover, the cultivation levels indicated on these martial arts manuals were all above the venerable realm. There were even some in the human martial arts realm and the earth martial arts realm. Naturally, this was automatically calculated by Luo Qingtong according to the cultivation levels in this strange world. After all, the immortal cultivation manuals on Earth and the cultivation system in this strange world were completely different. Luo Qingtong carefully estimated the power and effect of those martial arts manuals and marked them with their respective cultivation levels. She only took out 2 martial arts manuals of the Earth martial arts realm. With Hu Zhan and Guifeng's current strength, the first to enter the Earth martial arts realm would definitely be the 2 of them. Under such circumstances, 2 martial arts manuals were enough. Too many would be useless. Moreover, in the future, if the people of the Red Flame mercenary group didn't change their original intentions, Luo Qingtong would naturally give them more benefits. In this life, she wasn't afraid of giving benefits to others. But she was afraid of giving benefits to the wrong people. Therefore, no matter what Luo Qingtong did, she would always leave some leeway. Guifeng, Hu Zhan, and the others were loyal to her, so she naturally wouldn't be stingy with good things. In this world, if you want something, you have to exchange it with something. If you don't have anything, you can only use your heart and feelings. After all, it was impossible for him to not pay a price. They were both human beings for the first time. Why should she give whatever she had to the other party unconditionally? Sorry, but if she didn't like people, then she wouldn't give it to them. Hu Zhan's shocked attitude attracted the curiosity of Ouyang Yingyu and the others. The latter stood up and walked over. What are you 2 doing? With all this commotion, people who don't know would think that you guys picked it up. Where are the treasures? Ouyang Yinyu's words were stuck in her mouth, but it was too late to say them out loud. She looked at the stack of secret manuals that Luo Qingtong took out in front of her in shock. She was so shocked that her jaw almost dropped. Wait, I think I'm dreaming. Ouyang Yingyu raised her hand and covered her forehead and eyes in front of everyone's puzzled eyes. About 2 seconds later, "Aw!" A sharp, ear-piercing and shocking female voice resounded in the hole. Quick, quick, quick. Quickly cover my mouth. Ouyang Yingyu was going crazy. It's true, it's true. Damn. In front of Luo Qingtong, there really was a pile of secret manuals and martial arts manuals. Chapter 2453. Especially the leader, who was usually such a quiet and solemn person. She was so shocked that her mouth couldn't close. How long had it been like this? And that bastard, Hu Zhan, the floor under his feet was about to collapse. Couldn't he use a little less strength? Asking someone to fix it costs money. As Ouyang Yingyu thought about it, she screamed and asked the people around her to quickly cover her mouth. Her screams couldn't be stopped. When Ouyang Yingyu screamed, the other members of the Red Flame mercenary group were all shocked and gathered around. Then, each of them had a look of excitement, shock, and disbelief. Oh my God! Martial arts. Secret manuals. Martial arts. They only saw it from afar at the auction and could only buy the lowest quality goods at the highest price, but it appeared in front of them. The group of people from the Red Flame mercenary group were shocked to the extreme, their faces all flushed red. Quick! Close the door of the hall first. Guifeng was the first to come back to his senses, and then he said to the 2 members of the Red Flame mercenary group who were closest to him. The two of them seemed to have woken up from a dream, and immediately ran to the door and slammed it shut. Oh my God! Everyone's heart was beating so fast that it was about to jump out. It was really 2F*King exciting. This was definitely the most exciting and shocking day they had ever experienced. Little 7. Guifeng raised his hand and pressed on Luo Qingtong's shoulder, pushing her to sit on the stool next to the table. His heart was full of excitement, and the fingers that pressed on Luo Qingtong were faintly trembling. Little 7. He took a deep breath and tried to stabilize his voice, and said to Luo Qingtong, "These martial arts and secret manuals, where did you get them? He took a deep breath and said, "Are you a young master who ran out from some big family to gain experience? These martial arts and secret manuals are all in your family." Ah! Luo Qingtong was stunned when she heard his words. When she took out these martial arts and secret manuals, she knew that Guifeng and the others would guess her identity. She was also wondering if she should tell them the truth. But after thinking about it, she decided not to. She was in danger now, and it would be fine if Guifeng and the others didn't know, but if they knew, it might harm them. Therefore, Luo Qingtong was thinking about how to tell them. But who would have thought that before she could say anything, Guifeng had already found an identity and reason for her. A young master from a big family. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. For a moment, she didn't know how to answer them. Forget it, they've misunderstood. Forget it then. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she stopped talking. And Guifeng and the others, Luo's TTS. God T. You look so smart, but you don't seem to know anything about the outside world. Of course she didn't know. Luo Qingtong complained in her heart. She was suddenly sent to Tianfeng region, and she was very curious about everything in this region, okay? As for those abilities, she couldn't possibly not reveal anything, right? Otherwise, how could she earn money to gather information? Chapter 2454. The latter was still excitedly asking her, "Hey, Xiaoqi, which family are you from? There's no super family with the surname Luo in this Tianfeng domain." Hu Zhan's idea was very simple. Luo Qingtong was able to take out these secret manuals, in addition to her ability and shrewdness. The young man's family must be extraordinary. But in this Tianfeng domain, he didn't seem to have heard of such a family. Luo Qingtong's expression froze. Just as she was thinking about how to cover up this lie, Yang Yingyu scolded Hu Zhan, "Aren't you annoying? Xiaoqi originally escaped from her family. Who knows how her dog family treats her? Maybe not at all. Xiaoqi must have changed her surname. Or she doesn't want to talk about that family at all. Don't mention it." Guifeng also had this intention, but with his identity, he couldn't say anything to Hu Zhan. Yang Yingyu's words made him feel a lot better. That's right. He looked at Luo Qingtong softly and said, "If Xiaoqi doesn't want to say it, then forget it. We won't force you. It's just that." He looked at the secret manuals in his hand and said in a deep voice, "We can't accept these secret manuals. Xiaoqi, are these your family's treasures? You'd better take them all back. Otherwise, when you're discovered in the future, you'll suffer." Guifeng was very touched by Luo Qingtong's action of taking out these secret manuals for them. The young man's temperament was pure and sincere. He was not only guarded against others, but also extremely pure and kind. This kind of secret manual was actually given to them to use. But because of this, Guifeng and the others couldn't accept his secret manuals. Otherwise, once they were discovered, they could escape. But what about Luo Qingtong? If she was caught and brought back to the family, what kind of punishment would she receive? Guifeng didn't dare to imagine. Historically, people who betrayed their family didn't have a good ending. Therefore, even if Gui Feng and the others wanted these secret manuals, they couldn't accept them. Otherwise, he would be harming Luo Qingtong. As soon as Gui Feng's words left his mouth, Yangyu, Hu Zhan, and the others seemed to have thought of the same thing. The light in their eyes dimmed, and they immediately restrained the joyous and shocked expressions on their faces. They hurriedly said, "That's right. Little Seven, take back all these cultivation methods and manuals. We can't accept it." When everyone spoke, even Hu Zhan hurriedly put back the secret manual in his hand. He pushed it in front of Luo Qingtong and urged, "That's right, Little Seven, quickly take this thing back." Luo Qingtong looked at them and her heart felt even more at ease. She had not misjudged him. Even when these secret manuals were delivered to them, they could resist the urge to take them. It could be seen that he really cared about her and was genuinely concerned about her safety. Luo Qingtong thought and suddenly smiled, "Big brother Gu, big brother Hu Zhan, big sister in you, you don't have to worry. I obtained all of these secret manuals by accident. They don't belong to any family or family. You can rest assured. Nothing will happen. My family members also don't know." At this point, Luo Qingtong's lips twitched slightly. She thought of the dog family that Hu Zhan had just mentioned. The expression on her face was simply indescribable. Chapter 2455. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she suddenly smiled. When Hu Zhan and the others heard her words, they were stunned. Their eyes, which had dimmed down, suddenly lit up. "Really?" Hu Zhan, the uncouth man, jumped up immediately. He grabbed Luo Qingtong with an excited expression and shook her fiercely, "Little Seven, you can't lie to me. No, I swear to the heavens that this secret cultivation method has nothing to do with any of the sects or families here." Luo Qingtong's voice was sly, and she deliberately made some changes to the word "here." Originally, these secret cultivation method books were not from this world. She was not wrong in saying so. Hu Zhan, Yangyu, and the others heard this and immediately jumped up in joy. Gui Feng also had a smile on his face. Luo Qingtong looked at them and quickly said, "But big brother Gu, if you get this secret cultivation method book, you must not tell others where it came from. If others ask, just say that you got it by luck." When Luo Qingtong said this, Hu Zhan and the others immediately nodded and said, "Don't worry, Little Seven, we know what to say." Everyone naturally knew that Luo Qingtong wanted to hide her identity. They thought that Luo Qingtong did not want to be caught by the family, so she said this. But only Luo Qingtong knew that this was to protect their safety. Not revealing the origin of these cultivation methods and secret manuals would be of great benefit to both of them. Otherwise, it was hard to say when someone would deliberately come to investigate her. Especially those black-clothed men. Speaking of those people, Luo Qingtong also thought of the strange man who patted her chest that night. Who was that person? Was he one of those black-clothed men? While Luo Qingtong was thinking in her heart, in another part of Mercenary City, Yu Mingqian, who had changed into another set of clothes and was covered in a black cloak, looked coldly at the black-clothed man kneeling in front of him. "Can't find out." His voice was icy cold. The man who appeared outside Luo Qingtong's room that day was very mysterious. It seemed that he was there for Luo Xiaoqi's identity. He didn't know what he was trying to confirm. Could it be that someone else had already found out about Qin Meng and the things he knew behind the scenes? However, if that was the case, it was impossible for foster father to not mention it to him. After all, they still had to rely on him to find out who was behind Qin Meng. As Yu Mingqian thought of this, her eyes narrowed. "Please forgive me, master. That person's strength is very high. After we followed him, we all lost him." That night, Yi Qianxian came to investigate Luo Qingtong's identity. When he left, Yu Mingqian had her people follow him. He didn't expect that he couldn't find any trace of the other party. Furthermore, the other party's strength was so strong that he was able to silently shake off the people around him. Yu Mingqian frowned. At this moment, the black-clothed man gathered his courage and said, "Master, there is a letter from the Central Inscription Association urging you to go back quickly." You see, after Yu Mingqian found out Luo Qingtong's identity, he didn't report it. Instead, he killed all the people around him who had objections to him. Now the Central Inscription Association's people had become suspicious and were urging him to go back. After all, he had already lost the person. Why would Yu Mingqian stay outside? Yu Mingqian naturally knew the true meaning of the Central Inscription Association's urging. Chapter 2456. Oh, you're really afraid that I'll find out what's hidden behind it? Yu Mingqian sneered, his face full of mockery. He had only agreed to hunt down Chen Meng on a whim. He didn't expect his foster father to be so nervous. When he realized that he couldn't catch him, he immediately called him back. Yu Mingqian suspected that his previous guess was right. In fact, when he was in Tianfeng Inscription City, he had the chance to capture Chen Meng alive. But at that time, he had doubts in his heart. In addition, he was interested in Luo Qingtong, so he let it go. He didn't expect the young man named Xie Qi to be so powerful that he could kill Chen Meng directly and escape from his hands. Now that he finally gained a little trust from Xie Qi, how could he leave at this time? But he couldn't ignore the urging of the Central Inscription Association. If they were really suspicious and sent people to investigate, everything he did and the young man named Xie Qi would be exposed. If possible, Yu Mingqian didn't want Luo Qingtong to be discovered by the Central Inscription Association. The secret of the inscription of God on her body could only be his. Find something for the Central Inscription Association to do. His voice was casual, and his fingers tapped on the table. The matter of the Immortal Slayer Palace hasn't been solved yet, right? It's said that my foster father has been tracking down the remnants of the Immortal Slayer Palace. It's time for them to show up. You guys go and arrange this. Yes. The group of men in black immediately bowed their heads and answered. Some people wanted to say something, but when they saw Yu Mingqian's eyes, they immediately trembled and lowered their heads, not daring to speak again. Only one man in black, after receiving Yu Mingqian's order, asked in a low voice, "Master, this matter can only be put on hold for a while. When are you going to go back?" The Central Inscription Association was not easy to fool. Even with the matter of the Immortal Slayer Palace outside, there was no way to fool the Central Inscription Association for too long. If the master didn't go back, sooner or later they would be suspicious. Well, after a while. Yu Mingqian's face was indifferent. He thought of the scene when he stood in front of Luo Qingtong. He had almost won the other party's trust. At that time, he would be able to find a way to ask about the god's inscription. However, this matter could not be rushed. Of course, if he still couldn't gain the other party's complete trust, then he could only resort to extreme measures. No matter what, he had to get the news of the god's inscription. A cold light flashed in Yu Mingqian's eyes. Meanwhile, on the other side of Mercenary City, where Yi Qianxian and the others were staying, Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others had also found out the purpose of the Tianfeng Chu family's visit. Tianluo grass. Yi Qianxian looked at them. Yes, master. It's the Tianluo grass. As Feng Yu spoke, there was excitement in her eyes. Master, the appearance of Tianluo grass is very rare. Your meridians are severely damaged now. It's even worse than when you met the evil doctor. You can't use your full strength anymore. The existence of Tianluo grass can ease the injury of your meridians, so that your meridians will not continue to deteriorate. Master, the Tianfeng Chu family is now gathering mercenaries. Before they get the Tianluo grass, they will seal off Mercenary City, saying that they are investigating something. Chapter 2457. Feng Yu's words sounded a little cautious. Because Yi Qianxian used to hate people mentioning these things. His heavenly pulse body was destined to be incurable. He would die at the age of 28. Even if his life was temporarily extended, he would not exceed 30. This was the fate of generations of the heavenly pulse body, and so was he. Therefore, even if Yi Qianxian knew that there were many ways to slow down the deterioration of his meridians, he was too lazy to try them. After all, those things could only treat the symptoms but not the root cause. If he could not completely solve the problem of the heavenly pulse body, even if there were many ways to extend his life and slow down the deterioration of his meridians, what was the point of Yi Qianxian? He was destined to die. What difference did it make if he died sooner or later? However, Luo Qingtong's appearance changed everything. Yi Qianxian's meridians were strengthened. Therefore, he was able to fight with all his strength this time. He broke through his defense and left Tiandu, angering the other party. However, because of this battle, Yi Qianxian's meridians, which had been repaired and strengthened by Luo Qingtong, fell again. Now, they were not even 5% strong. They were even deteriorating and falling. Fortunately, after Elder Yu returned to Miracle Medical Valley, he gained some inspiration from Luo Qingtong and made some progress. He developed a new medicinal liquid and managed to stabilize Yi Qianren's broken meridians. Otherwise, Yi Qianxian might not even be able to stand here. Therefore, Feng Yu persuaded Yi Qianxian to get the Tianluo grass. After all, it contained the power of heaven and earth and was nourished by the great Tao. It was too rare. Master was not willing to waste time looking for the evil doctor to get those things. Bei Qing and Feng Yu were also very worried. Now that they finally got an opportunity and it was right in front of them, they naturally did not want to let it go. Master, do you agree? It won't delay the search for the evil doctor anyway. Moreover, the Tianfeng Chu family has made such a big fuss. If the evil doctor is really in the Tianfeng domain, he might have gotten the news from other places and joined them. As soon as Feng Yu said this, Yi Qianxian's eyes flickered. He looked at Feng Yu. What the latter said was not impossible. That woman was the most cunning and cunning. Although the Tianfeng Chu family kept their secrets well, that woman could even deceive him. She had deceived him more than once. So what if she dug out this little secret? All right. Yi Qianxian nodded. You guys go and make the arrangements. We will form a mercenary group and go over. Yi Qianxian did not intend to join any mercenary group. After all, he did not like to be bound by others. Moreover, his identity was too sensitive. If he joined other mercenary groups, it was inevitable that his identity would be investigated. At that time, it would easily arouse the suspicions of others. Yes. Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others were wild with joy at Yi Qianxian's words. They originally thought that they would need more time to convince Yi Qianxian. They did not expect him to agree so quickly. Sure enough, no matter what it was, as long as they brought up the evil doctor, everything would be right. As long as it had something to do with the evil doctor, there was nothing that Master would not agree to. As the group thought this, they immediately went to make the preparations. In case Yi Qianxian changed his mind later. Among them, Bei Qing ran the fastest. He had been holding it in for a long time. When they arrived at the high-level abandoned continent that the Tianfeng Chu family had mentioned, he could be said to be liberated. However, in order not to attract the attention of others, their strength and cultivation were all sealed. They only lifted a little to adapt to the level of strength and cultivation in the Tianfeng domain. Otherwise, he would feel even better. But it did not matter. It was good to have a fight. The group ran quickly. Yi Qianxian stood outside the window and looked at the scene in Mercenary City with deep eyes. Chapter 2458. Ching, Yi Qianqian's figure appeared downstairs in an instant and grabbed the shoulder of the person in front of him. His strength was so great that the latter was forced to be pulled over by him. However, after seeing the other person's face, Yi Qianqian's eyes suddenly became cold and dim. The word "tongue" was in his mouth, but before it could be completely spat out, it had been swallowed back. It wasn't her. Yi Qianxian looked at the young man in front of him coldly and turned to leave, but he was stopped by the latter. "Hey, brother, why did you stop me just now?" Luo Qingtong looked at the person in front of her with shining eyes. The other person was tall and his face was covered with a white jade mask. She didn't know why, but he gave her a very familiar feeling. He must have seen her somewhere before. Luo Qingtong wouldn't doubt her intuition. This person should have seen her somewhere before. Moreover, it wasn't just an ordinary person who knew him. It was very likely that they had fought before or something else. When Luo Qingtong stared at the mask on his face, Yi Qianqian's eyes were cold. After glancing at Luo Qingtong with a complicated look, he said coldly, "Nothing." He flicked his sleeves and was about to leave. Yi Qianxian was very upset that he mistook Luo Qingtong for Luo Xiaoqi twice in a row. He didn't know if it was because he missed Luo Qingtong too much, or the way she dressed up as a man and wandered around the black field gave him too much room for imagination. Now that he thought about it, even if Luo Qingtong was Xiaoqi before, she might not dress up as a man after leaving Tianfeng Inscription City for safety reasons. Someone was watching her in the dark. For Luo Qingtong, dressing up as a woman was the best way to get rid of others. However, Yi Qianxian didn't know that Luo Qingtong really did think that way. However, who asked her to be so deceitful back then? She thought that Song Qing had summoned her because he had enemies. In order to avoid the enemies of the Immortal Slayer Palace, she changed her appearance. Currently, this large birthmark couldn't be restored. If she were to change back into a woman's clothing, that would only attract more enemies. Even if she returned to the true Spill continent in the future, she wouldn't be able to feel at ease. Thus, she had chosen to disguise herself as a young man. This way, when she regained her identity as a young girl in the future, she would be able to get rid of all these troubles. Just as Yi Qianxian was about to fling his sleeves away, Luo Qingtong suddenly raised her hand and grabbed onto his sleeve, refusing to let go. "Brother." Luo Qingtong smiled at Yi Qianxian and said, "It's said that a chance encounter is better than a chance encounter. Look at how fated we are. You didn't pull anyone but me on the street. I feel that the fate between the two of us is really predestined. Do you think we should be friends? My name is Luo Xiaoqi. What's yours?" Luo Qingtong talked nonsense all the way, but on the surface, she was paying attention to Yi Qianxian. However, the latter's face was completely covered by the mask on his face. No matter how Luo Qingtong looked, she couldn't see his face. The other party's strength must be extremely strong, and this mask was certainly not an ordinary item. Luo Qingtong's blood-red eyes weren't fake. If it wasn't an extremely powerful treasure or the other party's strength, ordinary things that could hide one's aura and face would be ineffective against her. But she couldn't see through the person in front of her. Chapter 2459. Luo Qingtong thought of the mysterious man who came to her room last night to investigate. The same mask, the same powerful strength. And when the other party grabbed her, he blurted out the word Qing, right? What did he want to call her? Qingtong. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. One time wasn't enough, did he want to test her twice? Luo Qingtong was very suspicious that this masked man was the mysterious man who came to investigate her identity last night. The other party still hadn't given up on suspecting her identity. He really didn't give up. Then she would accompany him to have some fun. Luo Qingtong thought so and looked at Yi Qianxian with a smile. The latter was irritated and didn't want to stay here any longer. He suddenly waved his sleeve and was about to leave. I don't think we are fated to be together. Yi Qianqian's voice was cold. Fated to be fated. The other party really dared to say anything. Who was fated to be together with her? In his life, Luo Qingtong was the only one fated to be together with him. Thinking of this, Yi Qianxian suddenly left. He didn't want to be entangled with the other party. Since it wasn't Luo Qingtong, there was no need to be entangled. What's more, the other party and Luo Qingtong resembled each other, which would only make him annoyed. Hey, brother, don't go. Luo Qingtong hurriedly grabbed the corner of his sleeve when he was about to leave. She already suspected that the other party was the mysterious man who investigated her identity last night. How could she let him leave so quickly? However, just as she spoke, she heard a tearing sound. Yi Qianren's expression was unsightly as he looked at his sleeves being torn from the elbow, revealing his smooth and muscular arm. You! He looked at the youth in front of him with cold anger. At this moment, Luo Qingtong was also looking at the half-sleeve in her arms in a daze. Oh my God, she swore that she only used a little strength. How could she tear off the other party's sleeve? Cough. Brother, the quality of your clothes is a bit poor. Luo Qingtong laughed dryly as she looked at the other party's cold and angry eyes and said. The latter snorted and didn't want to talk to her at all. What poor quality clothes? It was because when Yi Qianren was about to shake off Luo Qingtong, for some reason, she suddenly felt an extremely irritated and unreasonable emotion. Then, she fiercely pulled back the force she used to shake off Luo Qingtong, which was why her sleeves were torn. Yi Qianren attributed this to the resemblance between Luo Shaoqi and Luo Qingtong. For some reason, when he saw the other party's eyes that were as cunning as Luo Qingtong's, he did not want to attack the other party. Your sleeve. It turned out that Yi Qianxian didn't care about her at all. However, Luo Qingtong wasn't annoyed at all. Didn't want to talk to her. Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. The smile on her lips was unusually evil and charming. Unfortunately, it's not up to you. Didn't he want to investigate her identity? She would let him investigate it properly. Luo Qingtong snorted and stuffed Yi Qianqian's sleeve into her arms. She was going to ask Gui Fang and the others to help investigate Yi Qianqian's identity when she went back. With the other party's appearance and characteristics, it shouldn't be difficult to find them in Mercenary City. And Mercenary City was now blocked by the Tianfeng Chu family. No one could go out. Chapter 2460. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong immediately hummed a tune and rushed towards the pharmacy. She had just come out to buy medicinal herbs. Luo Qingtong didn't know what dangers she would encounter in this high-level abandoned continent, so she had to be prepared. She didn't want to fail miserably before she got what she wanted. After Luo Qingtong left, Yi Qianxian also returned to the inn where he was staying with a cold expression. Bei Qing and Feng Yu had just finished their business and came back. Seeing their master walking in like this, they were stunned. Everyone's jaws almost dropped to the ground. Master, what's wrong with you? Feng Yu and the others were fine. Although they were shocked, they didn't ask. However, Bei Qing, who was careless and insensitive, couldn't help but point at Yi Qianqian's exposed hand and ask. What do you think? Yi Qianxian looked at him with a dangerous expression. Before Bei Qing could finish speaking, Feng Yu covered his mouth. Master, I suddenly remembered that the level of our mercenary group is too low. When we participate in the mission, we may be treated as cannon fodder. Then we may lose the opportunity to get the Tianluo grass. I'll go with Bei Qing to upgrade the mercenary group's level. Feng Yu said as he pulled Bei Qing and ran away. Bei Qing's mouth was covered by Feng Yu. He struggled for a long time as he was dragged away. Feng Yu, are you crazy? The two of us are going to upgrade the mercenary group's level. Don't you know that in order to upgrade a mercenary group's level, besides getting points from completing missions, you can also challenge stronger mercenary groups? You're challenging a mercenary group. Do you want the two of us to be beaten badly? One had to know that their strength and cultivation were still sealed. Bei Qing's eyes widened. He didn't know what Feng Yu was thinking. Feng Yu looked at him and didn't want to talk to him. This stupid husky. If he didn't say that, he would be sent by his master to deal with those mercenary groups. She really didn't know what to say, but she just had to talk about things that her master shouldn't ask. Sooner or later, he would be killed by his carelessness. However, Feng Yu thought of Yi Qianqian's expression just now. It seemed that although her master's expression was angry and cold, but it seemed that there wasn't much hostility or killing intent. What was going on? Who was it that was able to provoke master to such an extent and yet remain unscathed? Feng Yu naturally knew that Yi Qianxian wasn't injured. If Yi Qianxian had made a move, his expression wouldn't be like this. It seemed that the master was simply angry. Strange, Feng Yu pondered as she dragged Bei Qing away. Yi Qianren, on the other hand, had a cold expression as she watched them leave. After Bei Qing and Feng Yu left, the others didn't dare to stay by his side. What a joke, when the master was angry, whoever was by his side would be unlucky. Didn't they see Bei Qing's miserable appearance? If Feng Yu hadn't acted quickly, he would have been even more miserable. Now, the two of them were going to challenge those mercenary groups. Even if they only challenged some ordinary mercenary groups, it was enough to make them suffer. With this thought in mind, everyone immediately dispersed in tacit understanding. I remember that there are still some things that I haven't done. I have some too. Chapter 2461. The crowd ran away quickly, but Yi Qianxian didn't pay attention to them. He just took off his mask and looked at his bare arm with a cold expression. Since he was born, except for the time when he faced Luo Qingtong, he had never been so disheveled. That boy. Yi Qianxian sullenly thought of the way Luo Qingtong pulled his sleeve tightly at that time. If it weren't for the fact that she gave him the same feeling as Luo Qingtong, he would never let her go. Yi Qianxian crushed the white jade mask in his hand and replaced it with a new one expressionlessly. After Luo Qingtong returned to the Red Flame mercenary group after buying the medicinal materials, Yu Mingqian had learned from the members of the Red Flame mercenary group that Luo Qingtong was also going to participate in the mission of the Tianfeng Chu family. Tian Luo Grass. Thinking of the goal of the Tianfeng Chu family in Mercenary City, Yu Mingqian frowned slightly. That thing was useless to him. But Luo Qingtong's strength was so low. How could the Red Flame mercenary group let her participate in this mission? Didn't Guifeng always treat her as a little brother and love her? Yu Mingqian frowned. If Luo Qingtong participated in the mission this time, what should he do? Wait here for her. It didn't matter if it was before. But at this time, his adoptive father had some doubts about him and was urging him to go back as soon as possible. In this case, it was a waste of time for him to wait for Luo Qingtong here. He couldn't even wait for her to come back. Who knew if she could come back alive in the end? Yu Mingqian frowned and listened to the description of the members of the Red Flame mercenary group. He knew that it was the Tianfeng Chu family who appointed Luo Qingtong to do the mission. His eyes were cold and his eyelashes fluttered gently, giving him a weak and helpless look. Then you go to participate in the mission. It was impossible for him to wait here for Luo Xiaoqi. However, he couldn't force Luo Xiaoqi to reveal the whereabouts of the divine inscription. The Tianfeng Chu clan wanted Luo Qingtong to participate in the mission, and Mercenary City had already been sealed off by the Tianfeng Chu clan. It was easy for Yu Mingqian to take action, but how to conceal her identity and take action was a problem. As he thought about it, he quickly came up with a countermeasure. He wanted to go to that high-level abandoned continent with the Red Flame mercenary group. At that time, he would have plenty of chances to ask about the god's inscription. If they couldn't get any information out of him, it would be much easier for them to make a move. Not just that, but it was hidden so well that the people of the Central Inscription Association simply couldn't find it. As Yu Mingqian thought this, she said in a low voice, "I want to go with you." Ah. The members of the Red Flame mercenary group who were talking to him about participating in the mission didn't expect Yu Mingqian's answer at all. It can't be, right? They had told him all this in order to make him back off. After all, it was fine before. But now they were going to participate in the mission, and Luo Shaoqi was going with them, so it was definitely not suitable for him to go. The group discussed how to deal with Yu Xian. In fact, they were quite sympathetic to his experience. But completing the mission was not like going on an outing. There were many dangers in the high-level abandoned continent. It was already very difficult for them to take care of Luo Shaoqi, so it was certainly impossible for them to take Yu Xian with them. So they could only tell him the truth, give him some money, and let him leave after they left. But he actually said he wanted to go with them. Chapter 2462. Everyone dug their ears with all their might. A member of the Red Flame mercenary group looked at Yu Mingqian cautiously and said, "That, Yu Xian, this mission, you know about it, right? It's very dangerous. You'd better stay in Mercenary City. When the time comes, we'll give you a sum of money. You can live a good life in the future. That, you don't have to go on an adventure with us. It's not suitable for you to go." Yeah. The other members of the Red Flame mercenary group also persuaded, "Yu Xian, it's not that we don't want to take you. It's really not suitable for you to go. Even little Seven has no choice." That stinky old man from Tianfeng Chu's family was humiliated and couldn't bear it. That's why he insisted that little Seven must participate. "We don't know what kind of obstacles are waiting for us in the future. You'd better not go. We really can't take care of you." Yu Mingqian's current appearance was that of a helpless man who was even more useless than the average person. His skin was soft and tender, and he would be injured with just a slight touch, not to mention his fragile and sensitive personality. Although the members of the Red Flame mercenary group did not discriminate against him, they would not be stupid enough to follow him and let him complete the mission with them. They were all iron-willed straight men. Only Ouyang Yingyu liked the kind of character who was more manly than iron-willed straight men. There was no way she would fall in love with Yu Xian just because of his elegant, noble, and otherworldly image. She would not allow him to tag along just because of a casual remark. Besides, they didn't want to have such a burden. More importantly, they didn't want to be unable to protect Luo Qingtong well in the future because of such a burden. That was absolutely impossible. Therefore, everyone rejected him without even thinking about it. When Luo Qingtong saw Yu Mingqian looking at her, she laughed dryly and didn't say anything. She was actually quite happy that Yu Xian couldn't go with them. After all, she had been pestered by him for the past few days. Her small illusion pill had a time limit. It would expire about once every half a month. Luo Qingtong couldn't grasp the specific time. Therefore, Luo Qingtong was troubled by Yu Xian's appearance. But with the other party's background, if you said something a little harsh, he would think that you were looking down on him for being dirty. Luo Qingtong was speechless. In order to maintain the persona of Luo Shaoqi, she had worked very hard. If it was her previous temperament, she would have sent him away long ago. It wasn't that troublesome. With that thought, Luo Qingtong looked at Guifang. The latter thought that Luo Qingtong was speaking up for Yu Xian, so he immediately put down the dragon-slaying spear that he was wiping and looked at Yu Mingqian coldly. "Impossible. We won't take you with us. Because we can't have a burden without help in the team." Guifeng's words were extremely rude and hurtful. He had never liked Yu Xian. He was too close to Luo Qingtong. Coupled with his original identity, Guifeng had always wondered if he had ulterior motives towards Luo Qingtong. Once such an impression was planted, Guifeng's attitude towards Yu Xian couldn't be good. Even if Yu Xian hadn't done anything out of line, Guifeng was still worried. It was best to send him away now. Yu Xian's face turned pale when he heard his words. Chapter 2463. I heard a lot about the various factions when I was with that person. Some of them are about the Flying Star region. I know all the information about the various aristocratic families there. If you take me with you, you'll have a lot of assurance when you complete the mission. At least, you'll be more prepared to deal with the aristocratic family that's fighting with the Tianfeng Chu clan. Isn't that right? Guifeng and the others were taken aback when they heard Yu Xian's words. Especially Guifeng. He frowned and asked Yu Xian in a low voice, "Are you telling the truth?" If that was the case, bringing Yu Xian with them would be a big advantage. After all, the Tianfeng Chu clan hadn't told them anything about the aristocratic family they were fighting with. In the eyes of those people, mercenaries like them were probably going to risk their lives for them. They didn't care about anything else as long as they had their lives. If Yu Xian could provide them with information, they could avoid a lot of trouble. They could even protect Shao Qi and leave safely. With that thought in mind, Guifeng looked at Luo Qingtong. Yu Xian looked over as well. His glassy eyes were fixed on Luo Qingtong. He nodded and said, "It's true. However, you also know that those days were a disgrace to me. If it wasn't for Shao Qi, I wouldn't have." He didn't finish his sentence, but everyone understood what he meant. If it wasn't for Shao Qi, he probably wouldn't have told them about it. This also explained why he hadn't mentioned it before. Everyone understood in their hearts and looked at him with a trace of sympathy. Yu Mingqian lowered his eyes. A cold light flashed in the depths of his eyes. This was the best reason he could think of to join Guifeng and the others on the mission. At the same time, it wouldn't arouse their suspicion. After all, wasn't it normal for him to know some secrets when he was by the side of that young master from a sect? As for the information about the aristocratic families in the Flying Star region, Yu Mingqian didn't lie to Guifeng and the others. He was the junior president of the Inscription Association. Although he didn't know all the information about the various star fields and families, he still had a certain understanding of them. After all, if those people wanted to ask the Central Inscription Union to forge an inscription tool or something else, if they didn't provide information about their family members, how could they succeed in forging an inscription tool? Yu Mingqian wasn't worried that her words would be exposed once they reached the abandoned continent. When he lowered his eyes, Guifeng nodded and said, "All right, then when the time comes, you will set off with us." After receiving his affirmation, Yu Xian's eyes lit up. Then he looked at Luo Qingtong and said with a smile, "Little Seven, I can be with you again." "Really?" "Ha, ha." Luo Qingtong laughed dryly, not knowing what to say. Forget it, she would be more careful when the time came. Just try not to let Yu Xian get too close. Luo Qingtong was not speechless for too long. 3 days later, the Tianfeng Chu family gathered everyone in Mercenary City and prepared to head to the high-level abandoned continent. Naturally, the people from the Heavenly Wind Chu clan were leading the way. The people in Mercenary City just had to follow. Chapter 2464. The man's face was covered by a white jade mask, which completely covered his extraordinarily handsome face. Not even a crack could be seen. Only a pair of cold eyes were hidden behind the white jade mask, making it impossible for anyone to see through him. Behind him was a group of people wearing white jade masks. They were tall and slender, like the direct descendants of a wealthy family. They were Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others. These people who followed Yi Qianxian around were all outstanding members of their respective families. Just based on their strength and aptitude, they could instantly defeat all the geniuses in Tiandu, not to mention these mercenaries. Even though they had tried their best to conceal their auras, their temperament was still outstanding among the mercenary groups. When the group of mercenaries approached them, they unconsciously distanced themselves from them so as not to be outshone by others. After all, compared to Bei Qing and the others, this group of mercenaries was like clay chickens and pottery dogs. They were not presentable. Only the heavens knew that mercenaries looked at strength. Why were these people so handsome? No, it seemed like these people didn't even show their faces. Thinking of this, the group of mercenaries' faces turned green. This time, Tianfeng Chu's people sealed off Mercenary City and issued a mission. Many people from the various powers and families in the city were tempted by the news, and in an instant, many mercenary groups popped up. Although Yi Qianxian and the others were very conspicuous in the crowd, they didn't arouse too much curiosity. After all, the reward for this mission from Tianfeng Chu's people was very generous. In addition, there were many treasures and resources in that abandoned high-level continent. Anyone who didn't go would be a fool. Anyone who had the slightest idea would change their appearance and go. What was so strange about it? Everyone was well aware of this, and Tianfeng Chu's people wouldn't go out of their way to investigate. After all, the more people there were, the more power there was. As for what these people could gain there, it was up to them. Luo Qingtong's eyes lit up when she saw Yi Qianxian. She turned her eyes slightly and pulled Guifang and the others to where Yi Qianxian and the others were. "Hey, brother, what a coincidence. We meet again." She giggled as she patted Yi Qianren's shoulder. Of course, in the end, she realized that the man was too tall and she couldn't hit him, so she changed to hitting his waist. "Paw." Yi Qianxian grabbed her hand through his sleeve and said coldly, "I don't think it's a coincidence." He also saw Luo Qingtong when she appeared. But because he was angry about what she had done, he didn't want to talk to her at all. He pretended not to see it. Yi Qianxian felt that he had spent too much time and attention on Luo Xiaoqi. And the other party was a young man. After his verification, it was impossible for him to be Luo Qingtong. Even if the other party gave him the impression of Luo Qingtong, that sly and cunning woman, he shouldn't pay too much attention to her. Love me, love my dog. This did not exist for Yi Qianxian. In this world, there was only one Luo Qingtong. No one could replace her. Yi Qianxian's eyes were cold. After saying this, he suddenly raised his hand and shook Luo Qingtong's hand away. "Hey! Why are you like this?" Hu Zhan and the others were enraged by Yi Qianxian's words. Xiaoqi came to greet him politely. Even if he didn't want to talk to her, he didn't have to talk to her like this, right? Chapter 2465. That's enough, Xiaoqi. Since they are ignoring you, let's not stick to their cold buttocks. As she spoke, she pulled Luo Qingtong and was about to leave. But Luo Qingtong avoided her. "It's okay, sistering you." "Ahem. Actually, I was wrong before." Luo Qingtong waved her hand and refused Ouyang Yingyu's attempt to pull her away. What a joke. She deliberately came here. How could she let Ouyang Yingyu and the others pull her away? That would be too easy for them. Luo Qingtong glanced at the group of Bei Qing and the others behind Yi Qianxian. She could see that they were all elite warriors, and their strength was not weak. How could she give up such a good candidate for cannon fodder? No, a companion. What was more, these people were all wearing masks. Luo Qingtong couldn't help but think of the men in black. Tut, tut, tut. Were they afraid of exposing themselves in front of her? It was hard for them. But this was also good. She could pretend that she didn't know anything. It was good to be a fool and play with others. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong suddenly smiled at Yi Qianxian and said, "Brother, I'm sorry. I really didn't mean it last time. You have to believe me." Well, Luo Qingtong turned her eyes slightly and said to Yi Qianxian, "Can I help you sew your sleeve back? You must give me a good chance to atone for my mistake." As she spoke, she abruptly grabbed Yi Qianren's sleeve that she couldn't retract in time. "You!" Yi Qianxian looked at her coldly. His face was full of anger, but it was all blocked by the white jade mask, so no one could see his expression. They could only hear the anger in his words. Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others were already stunned when they heard it. It turned out that their master came back shirtless because of this Luo Shaoqi. They had thought that in this world, other than the demonic doctor, no one else would be able to make their master suffer like this. Well, that's not right. Isn't this Luo Shaoqi very similar to the evil doctor? Of course, this resemblance was not in terms of appearance, but in terms of feeling. If that was the case, it was no wonder that the master was so tolerant of her. With that thought in mind, everyone felt relieved. Seeing Yi Qianxian being grabbed by Luo Qingtong's sleeve, they didn't rush to help. During this period of time, Master missed the evil doctor and was in a very bad mood. Even if they were angered by someone, they were still very willing to let him temporarily forget his feelings. What's more, with Master's strength, if he didn't want to, he could just wave Luo Shaoqi away. After all, his master couldn't do anything to Luo Shaoqi because he couldn't let go of the evil doctor. Therefore, everyone watched from the side and did not make a move. Otherwise, with Luo Qingtong's blasphemy against Yi Qianxian, Feng Yu, Bei Qing, and the others would have already driven her and the people of the Red Flame Mercenary Regiment away. The mercenary regiments around them kept a respectful distance from them, not only because Yi Qianxian and the others were outstanding, but also because of the strength of Feng Yu, Bei Qing, and the others, which made them not dare to approach this group of people with white jade masks. Hu Zhan, Yangyu, and the others were originally very angry and wanted to drive Luo Qingtong away. Chapter 2466. It turned out that there was a reason why the other party had such a bad attitude towards Luo Qingtong. Tear off someone else's sleeve. Hu Zhan and the others glanced at Yi Qianxian's extraordinary temperament, and then thought of his shirtless appearance after his sleeve was torn off by Luo Qingtong. Cough cough. It seemed that it was normal for the other party to be angry. Everyone looked at the sky and didn't know what to say. Cough, just let little Seven go and apologize. The group of Red Flame mercenary group members instantly stopped talking. Anyway, although the man's tone was unkind, he didn't seem to want to hurt Luo Qingtong. Everyone just pretended not to see it. Only Yu Mingqian, whose face was hidden under a veil hat, stared at Yi Qianxian. Was this man the one who came to investigate Luo Shaoqi's identity that night? He guessed in his heart. After all, there were very few people in Mercenary City that he couldn't see through, just like Luo Qingtong. But the man that night was the same, and this man was wearing a mask, so he couldn't see through him. Not only that, Yu Mingqian's eyes swept over Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others behind Yi Qianxian, and the coldness in his eyes became even more intense. None of these people were weak. How could there be such a strong team in the 6-star Tianfeng domain? Subconsciously, Yu Mingqian raised his guard against Yi Qianxian. Especially after seeing Luo Qingtong deliberately getting close to him. He had been close to Luo Qingtong for so long, but he hadn't made her completely believe in him and get close to him. This man actually made Luo Qingtong get close to him again and again. If he hadn't seen with his own eyes that night that there was indeed no connection between the two, Yu Mingqian would have suspected that they knew each other. Could it be that he had gone the wrong way before? For someone like Luo Qingtong, taking the initiative to approach her was far better than meeting a stranger and letting her put down her guard. Yu Mingqian frowned and felt annoyed. But there was no way to start over. But he didn't know that there was a reason why Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian were so close. Yi Qianxian gave Luo Qingtong a different feeling. It came from the depths of her soul. Even if she didn't know Yi Qianxian's identity and even mistook him for an enemy, she still wanted to get close to him. If it was someone else, Luo Qingtong wouldn't have such an attitude. Not every enemy could be deliberately like Luo Qingtong. Yu Mingqian was thinking too much. On the other side, Yi Qianren tried to pull his sleeves back but failed. He wanted to use force but he was afraid of tearing his sleeves apart like last time. He looked coldly at Luo Qingtong and said, "Let go." He looked into Luo Qingtong's eyes. The youth's eyes were cunning and quick-witted, as if they were full of stars. She looked at him and said with a smile, "Don't. Brother, I'm really sincerely apologizing. Look at the material of your clothes. It's so good. Cough, of course, the quality is a little bad, but it's shameful to waste clothes." Luo Qingtong said seriously. "Do you want to give me your clothes? I'll help you sew the sleeves." Luo Qingtong said with a smile. He wanted to get rid of her, but she wouldn't let him. Didn't he suspect that she was Luo Qingtong? Chapter 2467. Moreover, these people were very powerful. If necessary, they would be able to escort them. Luo Qingtong was not the least bit lenient when using her enemies. When Luo Qingtong's voice sounded, Hu Zhan, who was next to her, suddenly said in surprise, "Little Seven, you know how to sew clothes. Last time, didn't you sew clothes?" Whoa. Hu Zhan's mouth was covered by Luo Qingtong. This pig teammate, he betrayed her every time. She felt so stifled. Luo Qingtong really didn't know how to sew clothes. She was a dignified technique master. Who would learn that? Besides, what era was the 24th century? Did she have to learn needlework? Of course, she would go to a high-end store to order clothes. Moreover, the clothes would be cleaned and maintained by professionals. The broken clothes would be directly thrown away. Who would mend them? Luo Qingtong said this because she wanted to successfully rely on Yi Qianxian and the others. Did this fellow, Hu Zhan, know her good intentions or not? She really had to hand it to him. Sister Yingyu, quickly come and control him. Brother Hu Zhan ate the wrong medicine again. He's starting to talk nonsense. Luo Qingtong gritted her teeth and said to Yang Yingyu. The latter looked at Hu Zhan, whose mouth was covered by Luo Qingtong. He was mumbling and waving his hand to show that he was not wrong. She really couldn't help but smile. Cough, I know. Little Seven was really cute. Didn't she poke the clothes when she was mending them last time? She actually didn't let Hu Zhan say it. This little guy's skin was so thin. Yang Yingyu thought and suddenly walked to Hu Zhan's side. She twisted his ear and pulled him aside. Enough, don't you see that little Seven is apologizing? Don't blindly interfere with her. Yang Yingyu also saw Luo Qingtong's purpose of getting close to Yi Qianxian. These people were very strong. If they could travel with them, it would indeed be very beneficial. Especially little Seven. This time, he was forced to participate in the Tianfeng Chu clan's mission. He did not know what kind of dangers he would encounter in the abandoned continent. If they could walk together with these people, it would be of great benefit to them. Furthermore, with little Seven's ability, it wouldn't be considered as taking advantage of these people. Thinking of this, Yang Yingyu immediately carried Hu Zhan to the side. Yi Qianxian looked coldly at the interaction between Luo Qingtong and Hu Zhan. He didn't know why, but when he saw Luo Qingtong's hand covering Hu Zhan's mouth, he felt a burst of irritation in his heart, and he almost made a move. He felt a burst of depression in his heart, and his gaze towards Luo Qingtong was full of hostility. The appearance of the other party had repeatedly provoked the nerve and bottom line of his longing for Luo Qingtong. If it was any other time, he would have killed him long ago. Just based on the fact that the other party dared to pull his sleeve again and again, and even tore his sleeve, it was enough for him to throw her hundreds of thousands of miles away with a wave of his hand. But because the other party's eyes were very similar to Luo Qingtong's, he couldn't do anything. Swish! He raised his hand and sucked Luo Qingtong over, opened his 5 fingers, and choked her throat. Hey! You! The people of the Red Flame Mercenary Corps never thought that Yi Qianxian would make a move on Luo Qingtong. This man had no murderous aura from the beginning. Why did he suddenly make a move on Little Seven? Could it be that he was angered by Little Seven? Thinking of this, everyone suddenly wanted to rush forward. Chapter 2468. Find the clothes and give them to her. Yi Qianqian's voice was cold. He waved his sleeves and said to Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others. The latter and the others had not recovered from the fact that Yi Qianxian had just raised his hand to grab Luo Qingtong's throat. Hearing this, they were stunned. Feng Yu reacted quickly. He immediately thought of what Luo Qingtong had said before, that she would sew the clothes for their master. Master was not serious, was he? He wanted this young man to sew the clothes for him. But hadn't Master's clothes been lost long ago? Feng Yu's lips twitched, and he quickly agreed. Yes, Master. Please wait a moment. As he spoke, he raised his hand to grab Bei Qing and the others and ran wildly. What a joke. How could he enjoy such a good thing alone? The clothes must have been thrown into the garbage dump. He could not be the only one who was smelly. All of them had a share of it. The group of people bitterly went to find the clothes for Luo Qingtong. And they had to move quickly. Otherwise, they would not be able to catch up with the people from the Tianfeng Chu family later. The group of people ran quickly. Yi Qianxian looked at Luo Qingtong coldly and said word by word, Don't you want to sew the clothes for me? Then sew it well. Yi Qianxian also heard Hu Zhan's words just now. He could guess that the other party did not know how to sew at all. In that case, she would sew it well. Let's see if the other party still had the energy to fool around in front of him. Yi Qianxian's eyes were cold. He was confused by Luo Qingtong's eyes just now. He raised his hand to grab her throat. In fact, he did not want to kill her. He just wanted to confirm the authenticity of the Adam's apple on her throat. As a result, Yi Qianren's eyes grew colder and colder. The face hidden behind the white jade mask became even colder and more callous to the extreme. Thinking of the hard feeling he had just touched, he knew that the Adam's apple could not be fake. This Luo Xiaoqi was indeed a young man. Genuine goods at a fair price, honest to both the old and the young. Yi Qianxian was frustrated. Since he couldn't do anything to her, he would just have to get her out of his sight. These clothes were enough to prevent her from getting close to him for a short period of time. As for Luo Qingtong, the hair on her body stood on end the moment Yi Qianxian raised his hand to choke her. It was not because he was scared, but because he was trying his best to restrain his instinctive reaction of wanting to fight back. She could feel that the other party did not have any killing intent towards her. And Yi Qianxian's reaction towards the end was also in line with her guess. But what kind of trick was that in the end? The other party actually agreed. He wanted her to sew his clothes. Damn! Luo Qingtong was dumbfounded. She had purposely found an excuse to rely on him, but she had never thought that he would agree. Furthermore, based on the other party's personality and the way he had always treated her, shouldn't he have always disagreed? This way, she would be even more clingy. Wait, isn't there something wrong with this script? Luo Qingtong stared at Yi Qianxian. And Yi Qianxian felt inexplicably comfortable when he saw her beautiful and cunning eyes staring at him like this. The other party's eyes often gave him an illusion that the other party was Luo Qingtong. Therefore, when this pair of eyes stared at him like this, Yi Qianxian inexplicably felt that Luo Qingtong was being teased by him. Unconsciously, the corners of his lips curled up. This smile was dazzling. Chapter 2469. But very quickly, the smile on his lips was forcefully suppressed. He looked at the young man in front of him, his gaze sweeping past his Adam's apple and his flat chest. The light in his eyes instantly turned cold. No matter how similar the other party was, he was still not Luo Qingtong. But seeing that the other party was so similar to the other girl, he would let him play a little more careful. Luo Qingtong's desperate attempt to get close to Yi Qianxian was mistaken by him as seeking protection. And he indeed did not want such a young man who looked so much like Luo Qingtong to die an unnatural death in that abandoned high-level mainland. Hence, he turned a blind eye to it. Yi Qianxian's gaze was cold. He did not pay any more attention to Luo Qingtong. Instead, he clasped his hands behind his back and closed his eyes to rest. Luo Qingtong looked at his back as he turned around and cursed in her heart. Was this considered reaping what she sowed? If she had known earlier, she would have said that she would buy him a new set of clothes to compensate him. What the hell was that about mending his clothes? Great, now she had fallen into the pit. Go to hell. While Luo Qingtong was feeling stifled, behind her, Gui Feng, Hu Zhan, and the others were trying their best to hold back their laughter. They could not help but laugh. Little Seven was really too cute. She probably did not expect that the man would really let her sew his clothes, right? Let her tremble in excitement. Gui Feng raised his hand into a fist and placed it by his lips. He coughed twice to cover up the light laughter that was constantly flowing out from his throat. His other hand patted Luo Qingtong's shoulder as he said, "It's okay, Little Seven, we have faith in you. Oh right, when you learn how to mend clothes, you can help us mend them too." When he said this, he really could not hold back the laughter in his throat. Pfft, after all, we don't have such a soft and cute young man like you in our group. There's hope for our logistics in the future. Don't you think so? Gui Feng said as he looked at Hu Zhan and the rest. The latter and the rest were about to collapse from laughter. Yes, yes, yes. Hu Zhan's ears were still hurting from being pinched by Yang Yingyu. Hearing this, he immediately raised his hand and shouted, "Little Seven, do your best. We'll wait for you to become an intelligent and brave logistics support." What kind of good logistics was this? Luo Qingtong gritted her teeth as she looked at Hu Zhan. Then, she suddenly raised her voice and said to Yang Yingyu, "Sister Yingyu, I heard Big Brother Hu Zhan and Brother Xiao Yu say that if you weren't a crazy woman, he could beat you with one hand." Hey hey hey. Luo Xiaoqi, you can't complain like this. Wah, Yang Yingyu, you crazy woman, are you serious? Hey, 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 we still have to participate in the mission later. Ow. Bei Qing and Feng Yu didn't leave for long before they came back with Yi Qianxian's old clothes. They were lucky. Yi Qianxian's clothes were luxurious and extraordinary. Not only was it a robe, but it was also a defensive magic tool. Although one of the sleeves was torn, it was still a good magic robe. Therefore, when Yi Qianxian threw the clothes away, the waiter of the inn put it away and didn't throw it away. Bei Qing and Feng Yu didn't have to go through the trash can. They gave the waiter a lot of money and came back with the clothes. Give it to her. Yi Qianxian slightly raised his chin. Luo Qingtong was forced to take the clothes with a depressed face. Chapter 2470. Sew it properly. Don't worry if it gets torn. Yi Qianyu's words were filled with indescribable indifference. I have a lot of things here, enough for you to make amends. Luo Qingtong was overjoyed when she heard him say that she didn't need to worry if it got torn. In that case, it didn't matter if it got torn. But who would have thought that Yi Qianxian would have such words waiting for her? Damn it! Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianxian gloomily. When the latter saw the gloomy expression on her face and the anger in her eyes, he inexplicably felt very comfortable in his heart. The other party's appearance as a man, whether it was the shape, the behavior, or the expression, was very similar to Luo Qingtong when she was disguised as a man. If it weren't for the birthmark on her face and the characteristics of a man that couldn't be faked, Yi Qianxian wouldn't have believed that she wasn't Luo Qingtong. But in fact, she wasn't. Thinking of this, Yi Qianxian's eyes suddenly turned cold. He didn't look at Luo Shaoqi anymore, but turned his eyes to other places in the square and carefully looked around. Now the crowd gathered in the square was very large. Almost all the people who wanted to go to the abandoned continent to complete the task of obtaining the heavenly grass were gathered here. If Luo Qingtong was in Mercenary City, maybe she would appear here. Yi Qianxian had a glimmer of hope in his heart. He carefully looked at the mercenary corps in the square, paying special attention to the young men and women. Then he remembered that Luo Qingtong was a cunning woman. She might not disguise herself as a young man or a woman, but she could also be an old woman or a strong man. He immediately glanced at the others again. But no matter how he looked, no one gave him a special feeling. He looked at everyone, but when he looked carefully, it didn't seem like it. Yi Qianxian looked for a while and felt a headache coming on. It was a pity that he couldn't reveal his identity now. Otherwise, he would have called out the woman's name and reported his identity. If she was here, how could she not show herself? Yi Qianren's thin lips were tightly pursed. Behind the mask, his indescribably handsome face dimmed. Then, he slowly closed his eyes in exhaustion. At this moment, there was a commotion in the square. It was the Tianfeng Chu family. A group of young men and women of similar ages walked toward the square under the lead of Elder Fu and the others. Judging from the respectful expressions on Elder Fu and the others' faces, it was obvious that these people were the direct descendants of the Tianfeng Chu family. They were the candidates who were going to the abandoned high-level continent to participate in the fight for the Tianluo herb. While the mercenaries were in an uproar, the group of young men and women also looked at the crowd in the square with disdain. Is this the kind of trash that will protect us? Even the bodyguards chosen by our Tianfeng Chu clan's branch families are better than them. A young girl in blue who was walking in the middle of the group complained unhappily. Chu Ku, if you don't want to come here, you don't have to. Anyway, there are many descendants of the Tianfeng Chu clan who want to replace you. You're from a branch family. What are you complaining about? Do you really think that the third elder's family is still the direct descendants of the Tianfeng Chu clan? Beside her, a handsome young man said disdainfully. How dare Chu Ku look down on the people of Mercenary City? Chapter 2471. Although their cultivation might not be higher than the guards of the Tianfeng Chu clan, their combat experience and combat ability were much higher than theirs. If it were the guards of the other clans protecting them, they might not be as good as these people from Mercenary City. What did Chu Ku know? Chu Xiaofeng's expression was full of disdain. On the other hand, Chu Ku was so angry that her face turned red. The third elder's line was indeed the direct line of descent of the Chu clan, but that was when Chu Tianyi did not have his own bloodline. Who would have thought that Chu Tianyi would suddenly find his own bloodline not long ago? No one could deny that the other party had inherited the unique aura of Chu Tianyi's bloodline. There was nothing they could do about it. Their third elder's faction could only abdicate their position and give it to the man Chu Tianyi had brought back as the true direct descendant. If not for the fact that the other party was a fool who knew nothing about the clan's affairs. They still needed the people of the third elder's line to maintain it. The third elder's line had long been kicked out of the core of power. Now that Chu Xiaofeng mentioned it, Chu Ku instantly exploded. No matter how bad the people of the third elder's line are, they are still better than the people of the eighth elder's line who don't even have the qualifications to touch the direct line of descent. Her voice was sharp as she said, "Who do you think the people of the eighth elder's line are? They are just dogs raised by the direct line of descent of the Tianfeng Chu clan. They will be led wherever they want to be. Do you think that you are part of the Chu clan just because you changed your surname?" As soon as she said this, the face of a young girl dressed in pink, who was not far away from her, instantly turned pale. Her body seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. You. As soon as she said this, Chu Ku's expression became a little flustered. "I'm sorry, Sister Yufei. I'm not talking about you. I'm saying that Chu Xiaofeng and the others don't know what's good for them. They entered the Chu clan and still slandered me, a member of the Chu clan." Chu Ku's expression stiffened as she said this. This was because her words stepped on Chu Yufei's heart even more than before. No. She hurriedly waved her hands and said, "Big Sister Yufei, I'm really not talking about you. You must believe me. Auntie Bai Xing is the great benefactor of our Tianfeng Chu family. If it weren't for her, who knows what would have happened to our Tianfeng Chu family. Don't be sad. Your surname is different from Chu Xiaofeng and the others. You are a true member of our Chu clan." "Yes." Chu Yufei looked at her and nodded with a nasal voice. However, the expression on her face didn't look too good. The reason for that was because what Chu Ku had said earlier had truly pierced through her heart. Regardless of whether she had the surname Chu and considered herself to be Chu Tiany's daughter, she was still not a member of the Chu family. This was something that no one could hide. In the past, Chu Tiany did not have his own bloodline and treated her like his own daughter. She was treated like a princess in the Heavenly Wind Chu clan. But now, Chu Tiany had found his own bloodline. Not only that, she heard that he had a wife. In this case, she and her mother might not be able to establish themselves in the Tianfeng Chu family anymore. The glory, wealth, status of the past would all be gone from her. And this was not the scariest thing. The scariest thing was what her mother, Bai Xing, had told her. If all those things were true, then her mother and she would no longer be able to enjoy the glory and status that the Heavenly Wind Chu clan had brought to them. Chapter 2472. Thinking of this, Chu Yufei's well-maintained and pampered fingernails dug deep into her own flesh. Her heart was filled with all sorts of dark thoughts, but she did not show them on her face. She only looked at Chu Ku with tears in her eyes and nodded. "Little Sister Ku, I know you didn't mean it. You don't have to explain. I've always known that I'm not a member of the Tianfeng Chu family. I also know that my days with Lo Anmei were stolen. One day, I will have to return them. But little Sister Ku, you're different. You originally had the chance to become the little princess of the Tianfeng Chu family." Unfortunately, before Chu Yufei could finish her words, an extremely strong expression of resentment appeared on Chu Ku's face. It made her somewhat beautiful face look like a dark and malicious spirit. Chu Yufei's words pierced right into her heart. Little Sister Yufei, you don't have to worry. We still don't know the outcome of this trip to the Tianluo grass." Chu Ku sneered and said with a hidden meaning. How could it be so easy for that fool to secure his position as the young master of the Chu family? Who knew how many people wanted to kill him in secret during this trip to obtain the Tianluo grass? Among them were people from the third elder's line. It was also that fool's fault. Originally, the family head did not want him to participate in this mission. It was he who insisted on participating. He even made an agreement with the family head that if he obtained the Tianluo grass, the ownership would belong to him. No matter what he did with it, the family would not interfere. It looked like he wanted to give the Tianluo grass away as a gift. This was simply ridiculous. He actually wanted to give such a peerless herb away as a gift. He was indeed a fool. Chu Ku sneered. But it was fortunate that the other party was a fool. Otherwise, who would dare to touch him under the protection of the family head? In the future, once he grew up, his strength and power would not be inferior to the family head. When that time came, no one would be able to touch him. After all, the family head was an existence that could fight against a powerful person from a 3-star region as a 6-star region's region lord. It was not an ordinary kind of terrifying. It was said that the family head's background was extraordinary. He was not an ordinary person. Chu Ku's thoughts raced. Chu Yufei, on the other side, was also very satisfied with her words. It seemed like the Third Elder's people were preparing to make a move in this operation to obtain the Sky Luo grass. This way, once that person died, she and her mother would be able to sit back and relax. As for the Third Elder's men, they were nothing to be afraid of. Only a fool like Chu Ku would think that what she had just said about the little princess of the Tianfeng Chu family was true. The little princess of the Tianfeng Chu family, other than himself, how could it be anyone else? Chu Ku was thinking too much. Both of them had their own thoughts as they walked to the front of the square with the team. As for Chu Xiaofeng, he had already walked to the front when Chu Ku had called him a dog. He could not be bothered to lower himself to her level. Even if they were the dogs of the Tianfeng Chu clan, the Eighth Elder's bloodline had always been at the core of power. And what about the Third Elder's people? Once they were kicked out of the core of power, they would be worse than dogs. They still had the nerve to be so arrogant here. It was also that the new young master's brain was not very bright. Otherwise, how could Chu Ku and the others be so arrogant? However, the new young master had inherited the same bloodline as the family head and was destined to be in charge of the Chu family in the future. Chapter 2473. He couldn't be bothered to pay attention to Chu Ku and the others. The group of people walked to the front of the square. Luo Qingtong and the others also knew that the Tianfeng Chu family's disciples were here to choose their guards after the announcement. Because when Elder Fu issued the task, he had already said that they were going to be the guards of the Tianfeng Chu family's disciples. Their main purpose was to protect them. At the same time, they would help them get the Tianluo grass. Everyone was already mentally prepared, so they didn't reject it. Yi Qianxian, Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others' eyes were cold. Although they were a little worried, they didn't say anything. After all, this was the Tianfeng Chu family's task, so the rules were naturally set by them. When they arrived at the abandoned high-level continent, wouldn't it be up to them to decide what to do? They were silent and didn't say anything. Luo Qingtong's eyes turned slightly, and she suddenly moved closer to them. She was holding Yi Qianxian's clothes in her hands and hadn't had time to put them away. When she moved closer to Yi Qianxian, the man opened his eyes and turned to look at her. Luo Qingtong smiled at him. "Brother, didn't we agree to go together? It's more convenient to be closer." As she spoke, she raised the clothes in her hands, indicating that Yi Qianxian didn't forget that she still had to sew clothes for him as an apology. Yi Qianren looked at her crafty and quick-witted eyes. In the end, she did not say anything. She only coldly turned her head away and closed her eyes to rest. Luo Qingtong made a face at him in her heart, and then quickly called the people of the Red Flame mercenary group over. The Red Flame mercenary group needed such a good candidate for cannon fodder. For some reason, when Luo Qingtong was close to Yi Qianxian, she felt particularly at ease. He must be very powerful. Before he confirmed her identity, she should take advantage of him as long as possible. With this thought, Luo Qingtong immediately moved closer to Yi Qianxian, so as not to be left behind. She didn't care. On the abandoned continent, even if she was weak, she could survive by relying on her blood eyes. But the people of the Red Flame mercenary group might not be so lucky. Therefore, Luo Qingtong was prepared to stick close to Yi Qianxian and the others. Anyway, they just happened to want to investigate her identity, right? Just right. She would give them a chance. The group of people gathered together, coupled with Yi Qianren's unique appearance and temperament, immediately attracted the attention of Chu Ku and the others. I want them. Almost instantly, Chu's name was Yi Qianqian's mouth. She raised her hand and pointed at Yi Qianxian and the others, then looked at Luo Qingtong with disgust and said, I don't want this ugly monster. She said this very naturally and didn't consider that Luo Qingtong and the others might be in a team. To Chu Ku, these mercenaries in Mercenary City were all the same. Couldn't this ugly monster go somewhere else? Why did she have to hang out with the people she had her eyes on? Yi Qianxian, Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others were all wearing white jade masks. They all looked slender, like jade trees and orchids. They stood on the ground and had an extraordinary aura. It was very pleasing to the eyes. Luo Qingtong didn't fit in with them. Chapter 2474. The man in the white jade mask opposite her was the most charming person she had ever seen. Even if his face was covered, he gave people a feeling that was hard to ignore. The other white jade masked men did not have the same aura as him. Chu Ku's gaze was fixed on Yi Qianqian's face. She raised her head and raised her chin, saying, I've chosen you. Take off your mask and let me have a look. There was an unconcealable expectation in her words. Chu Yufei's eyes lit up as she looked at Yi Qianxian. She could also tell at a glance that Yi Qianxian was extraordinary. In this group of vulgar mercenaries, he and the people around him were probably the only clear stream and scenery. Unfortunately, Chu Ku beat him to it. At this time, Chu Yufei was extremely disgusted with her identity. If she was the real little princess of the Tianfeng Chu family, why would she have to live so cautiously? She would have ordered Chu Ku to give the other party to her. Unlike now, she could only watch enviously as the other party chose first. I refuse. Yi Qianqian's voice was cold. He did not care who he followed. After all, he did not intend to listen to the other party at all. When they arrived at the abandoned continent, wouldn't everything be up to him? But for some reason, when he heard the other party call Luo Xiaoqi an ugly freak, he felt very unhappy. This young man who was very similar to Luo Qingtong, even if he was bad, it was not the place of an extremely vulgar girl to criticize him. If the other party was an ugly freak, then what was she? Was an ugly freak worse than him? She even wanted him to take off his mask. Yi Qianxian looked at Chu Ku coldly. He watched her face turn from complacent to blushing, from arrogance to embarrassment. His voice was cold, I refuse to be your guard. He refused, and the people around him naturally did the same. Chu Ku looked at Yi Qianxian with a red face. She did not expect to be humiliated twice in one day. Chu Xiaofeng, that bastard, scolded her. Now in this mercenary city, a small mercenary dared to refuse her appointment. You! She pointed a trembling finger at Yi Qianxian. She was so angry that she could barely contain her anger. Especially since she still harbored some unspeakable thoughts about Yi Qianxian, the exasperation on her face was even more apparent. Good. You refuse, right? You. Before she could finish speaking, Chu Xiaofeng's voice rang out from the other side. What happened to them? He walked out from the group, his face full of disdain. Chu Ku, stop acting like a young lady. Don't embarrass yourself outside. What? Are you going to flip out just because someone doesn't like you? As he spoke, he looked directly at Yi Qianxian and the others. After sizing them up, he looked at Gui Feng and the others. You're together. He pointed at Yi Qianxian and the others. Yes. Gui Feng and the rest did not understand what was going on with this young master, but they still nodded. Good, then follow me. He said, although they look a little useless, since you're together, I'll bring them along. Pfft. When Luo Qingtong heard this, she could not help but laugh. This young master of the Tianfeng Chu family was a little interesting. He actually brought along Yi Qianxian and the others because of the Red Flame mercenary group. He probably did not know that these white jade masked people were the most powerful, right? She did not know what he was thinking when he was despised to this extent. A pewter spearhead. Chapter 2475. When Yi Qianxian heard those words, he had a subtle expression on his face. Luo Qingtong had mocked him in the past. He subconsciously lowered his head and looked at the young man next to him. This time, he met Luo Qingtong's gaze. Cough, Luo Qingtong didn't know what to say. How annoying. Occasionally, he would rejoice in other people's misfortune, but he was caught in the act. How could she be so unlucky? She looked up at the sky and tried her best to pretend to be innocent. When Yi Qianxian saw her like this, his originally sullen mood instantly dissipated. This person's mischievous and scheming appearance was so damn similar to that woman. Yi Qianxian gritted his teeth and stared deeply at Luo Qingtong's flat chest. In the end, he didn't make a move to pry it open to see what was going on. He had checked the other party's body again and again. There was no doubt about the other party's identity. He probably missed that woman too much. That was why he kept mistaking the other party for her. As Yi Qianxian thought about it, he closed his eyes and turned his head away. He didn't look at Luo Qingtong again. After Chu Xiaofeng's words, Chu Ku's sharp voice rang out. Chu Xiaofeng, what do you mean? You just scolded me, and now you want to snatch people from me. Chu Ku's voice was extremely sharp. She was really angry. Her eyes were as big as copper bells, and her face was so angry that it almost turned purplish red. Chu Ku, are you sick? If you're sick, go take medicine. Chu Xiaofeng looked at her with a cold smile. All the mercenaries here are up to us to choose. They don't want to follow you, and you blame me. Chu Xiaofeng's voice instantly attracted the attention of many of the Tianfeng Chu family members. Seeing that Chu Xiaofeng and Chu Ku had a conflict, everyone's face suddenly revealed a strange expression. Chu Xiaofeng's family members were staunch supporters of the family head and only listened to the orders of the family head. As for Chu Ku's branch, before the return of the new young master, they had always considered themselves to be the direct descendants of the family head. Now that the young lord had returned, there was a better candidate for the clan head's direct line of descent. Naturally, the third elder's line would have to abdicate and give way to a better person. However, it seemed that Chu Ku was not willing to accept this because Chu Xiaofeng's people supported the new young master and had fought with Chu Xiaofeng several times. This time was probably no exception. The crowd did not intend to participate in the dispute between the two clans. At least on the surface, they did not intend to participate. They immediately pretended not to see anything. As for Luo Qingtong, Yi Qianxian, and the others, no one came to compete with Chu Xiaofeng and Chu Ku. Chu Yufei was overjoyed. She also didn't want Chu Ku to be followed by Yi Qianxian. Now that she saw Luo Qingtong and the others being intercepted by Chu Xiaofeng along with Yi Qianxian, she immediately said to Chu Ku in a soft voice, forget it. In the future, the people in the 8th Elder's line will be the direct subordinates of the new young master. They are not people we can afford to provoke. You are no longer the third miss of the Tianfeng Chu family's direct line of descent. We'd better not cause any more trouble. Otherwise, we will inevitably be punished. As soon as she said these words, she instigated again without batting an eyelid. This made Chu Kuber secretly hate in her heart. She was bullied by Chu Xiaofeng because she had lost her status as a direct descendant. In fact, Chu Kuber really thought so. If she still had her status as a direct descendant, would Chu Xiaofeng dare to go against her with just one order? He was just a dog of the clan head's direct line of descent. Chu Kuber was furious. Chapter 2476. After Chu Xiaofeng had insulted her, he had brought Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian away. Chu Kuber's eyes were burning with rage, but she could not do anything to Chu Xiaofeng. The Eighth Elder's faction was at the core of power and had always been the Master's trusted aides. Their Third Elder's faction could not compare at all. Furthermore, Chu Xiaofeng had always found her an eyesore. It was only because of her previous status as a direct descendant that he could not target her. Now that she had lost her status as a direct descendant, the other party did not even place her in his eyes and she could not do anything about it. She had no choice but to choose other guards. However, what made Chu Kuber almost faint from anger was that no matter which mercenary group she chose, as long as they were slightly stronger, they had all rejected her. That's right, all of them. Chu Kuber was about to go mad with anger. What was going on? Have these mercenaries gone mad? Not a single one of them was willing to follow her. Even if there were some who were willing to follow her, they were not that powerful or were very weak and had no other choice. Only then had they reluctantly agreed to follow her. Chu Kuber looked at the forced expressions on their faces and almost tore the hem of her clothes into pieces. She had not even despised these people for being ugly and they actually dared to despise her. Chu Kuber's face was filled with disbelief. If it were not for the fact that she had no guards to follow her and could easily encounter danger and mishap in the abandoned continent, she would definitely raise her hand and slap them all to death. She had never suffered such humiliation before. Bastards, what was going on? However, Chu Kuber did not know that all this had happened because she had called Luo Qingtong an ugly freak. Who was Luo Qingtong? She was someone that the mercenaries had specially invited to rely on. The mercenaries had hoped that she would be able to observe the details and see through the mission item at a glance. From there, she would be able to formulate various countermeasures based on its habits and environment. This would allow them to gain something from the abandoned continent and even reduce casualties and losses. Under these circumstances, Chu Kuber had called Luo Qingtong an ugly freak. Wasn't that asking for a beating? Who would dare to approach her now? What if Luo Qingtong got angry and decided not to tell them anything about the abandoned continent? To put it bluntly, the children of the Tianfeng Chu family were precious. However, Chu Kuber wasn't the only one from the Tianfeng Chu family present. They could have chosen anyone else, but they had to choose someone who was against Luo Qingtong. Wouldn't he be bored out of his mind? Therefore, everyone rejected Chu Kuber. Not only that, even those who had no choice and reluctantly agreed to follow Chu Kuber sent people to apologize to Luo Qingtong, explaining their difficulties. Luo Qingtong didn't expect these mercenaries to be so supportive. She didn't say anything, and they helped her vent her anger. Chu Kuber was so angry that her face turned green. Her face was as hateful as a ferocious ghost, and her body trembled uncontrollably. She was delighted and immediately responded to those who came to apologize with a light smile, telling them not to mind it. When she arrived at the abandoned continent, she would share with them the information that she had seen with her blood eye. Of course, they didn't need to let Chu Kuber know about these things, nor did they need to remind her. Naturally, everyone agreed with him. No one felt that Luo Qingtong was vengeful. Who asked Chu Ku-er to scold Luo Qingtong first? The one who provoked her first was despicable. Chapter 2477. Everyone began to choose the people they wanted to follow. Soon, the mercenaries in the square were all assigned. Almost every child of the Tianfeng Chu family was assigned to 5 mercenary regiments. There was a small interlude. Most of the mercenary regiments, especially the high-ranking mercenary regiments, flocked to Chu Xiaofeng's side and asked him to choose their own people. Chu Xiaofeng was baffled by this. However, he couldn't choose all of his guards as high-ranking mercenary regiments. This was an internal rule of the Chu family to prevent people from abusing their power for personal gain and causing the situation of the guards to be unfair. Therefore, generally, one person could only choose 2 high-ranking mercenary regiments. The others were optional. Red Tu and Yi Qianxian formed Black Fiend, which happened to be 2 high-ranking mercenary regiments. Therefore, even though Chu Xiaofeng was popular with everyone, he only chose 3 mid-level mercenary regiments in the end. Those who were chosen cheered, while the rest were dejected. In the end, they followed the others dejectedly. This scene made the other children of the Tianfeng Chu family twitch their lips. They didn't know where Chu Xiaofeng's magic came from to make these mercenary regiments flock to him like a flock of ducks. However, they didn't know that it wasn't Chu Xiaofeng who made the mercenary regiments flock to him, but Luo Qingtong. All the mercenaries were hoping to be in the same group as her. This was much safer than being separated from the other party. After all, even if Luo Qingtong could explain the general situation of the abandoned continent to them, what if they encountered some special things? One had to know that after they arrived there, they would follow their respective masters and be separated from Luo Qingtong and the others. This was something that no one expected at the beginning. Previously, they thought that they would all be together and protect the children of the Tianfeng Chu family together. Just like this, those who were chosen cheered, while those who weren't chosen could only follow others. Looking at the lively scene on Chu Xiaofeng's side, Chu Ku-er, who was alone behind her and barely managed to gather 5 mercenary regiments, almost couldn't control her temper. Bastard! Chu Xiaofeng, this bastard! I'm so angry. She gritted her teeth fiercely. Beside her, Chu Yufei was in a very good mood. Her luck was not bad. Because she looked sweet and wasn't weak, almost all the designated mercenary groups were willing to follow her. 2 advanced mercenary groups and 3 medium mercenary groups. Compared to those crooked people behind Chu Ku-er, they were much better. Chu Yufei was very pleased with herself. However, seeing Chu Ku-er's anger, she still said in a gentle voice, "Little sister Ku-er, don't be angry. Let's travel together. It just so happens that my combat ability is not as good as yours. If we are together, we can take care of each other." As soon as she said that, Chu Ku-er's expression instantly brightened. Chu Yufei was very good with words. She clearly felt that Chu Ku-er's guards were too lousy, so she went with her. However, the words she said were subtly flattering Chu Ku-er, making her feel very comfortable. "Okay, Sister Yufei, thank you. Don't worry, when we reach the abandoned continent, I will take good care of you." As for Chu Xiaofeng, he better not be complacent. When I get there and see my big brother and the others, I'll definitely teach him a lesson. Chapter 2478. Regardless of whether he was the culprit, she had lost a lot of face this time. Someone had to bear the consequences. Just you wait, Chu Xiaofeng. When she reached the abandoned continent and met her elder brother, she would not let him off. Chu Ku-er's elder brother was the top disciple of the Tianfeng Chu family. This time, the top disciples of the Tianfeng Chu family who came to Mercenary City to select guards did not come. That was because each of them was the hope of the Tianfeng Chu family. In the future, they would be the pillars of the Tianfeng Chu family. Their guards were the most important and would not be selected from among the mercenaries. Instead, the family elders would personally make the arrangements. Therefore, they did not come here. Chu Yufei smiled gently when she heard Chu Ku's words and did not say anything. The expression on her face was very gentle. However, in her heart, she was very disdainful. When it came to the top disciples of the Tianfeng Chu family, although Chu Ku's elder brother was powerful, the eighth elder's people were not to be trifled with either. Naturally, there would be people above Chu Xiaofeng. Moreover, wasn't there still that fool? Chu Yufei's expression turned ugly when she thought of him. She gritted her teeth slightly. She only hoped that the fool would completely die on the abandoned continent this time. Then, she and her mother would be able to sit back and relax. At that time, she would still be the little princess of the Tianfeng Chu family who was doted on by the head of the Chu family. Her mother, Madame Xing, would still be the head of the Chu family's female confidant and his savior. No one would be able to change all of this. After the group of people finished their selection, they followed the people of the Tianfeng Chu family out of the city. Apart from the mercenaries who were participating in the mission, no one else was allowed to leave the city. Although the people outside were curious about what had happened in Tianfeng Mercenary City, the Tianfeng Chu family had sealed the city and said that they had something to investigate. Other people from the Tianfeng domain did not want to get in the way of the Tianfeng Chu family at this time. What if the Tianfeng Chu family thought that they had ulterior motives, or even that they were the culprits? As a result, the crowd of outsiders avoided Heaven's Wind Mercenary City like the plague, and no one came to inquire about Heaven's Wind Mercenary City. The group of mercenaries followed the people from the Heavenly Wind Chu clan and soon arrived at a desolate continent. The Tianfeng Chu family had already cleared out all the people here. At this moment, the Tianfeng Chu clan's people surrounded the barren continent, allowing the mercenaries and the Chu clan's disciples to enter. Inside, a huge teleportation array was suspended and engraved on the continent. As the spirit energy in the continent surged, it faintly rose and fell. Obviously, the Tianfeng Chu clan wanted to use this huge teleportation formation to send everyone to the abandoned continent in the Flying Star Field. Luo Qingtong observed the array carefully. Although it wasn't as profound as the one in Heavenly Wind Inscription City, it was much easier to operate. However, it required a huge amount of energy. Other than the Tianfeng Chu clan, which had a deep foundation and a large number of experts who could provide assistance and energy, ordinary clans wouldn't be able to withstand the energy required to activate this array. She secretly memorized this teleportation formation in her heart. Her blood-red eyes faintly opened, imprinting this teleportation formation in her mind. Chapter 2479. This was of great benefit to Luo Qingtong's replication. If the formation was not activated, Luo Qingtong would have to spend a lot of time analyzing and studying it. Even if she copied it, she still had to carefully study its power flow and activation lines. Otherwise, even if she copied it, it would take her a lot of effort to activate it. The more complicated and advanced the formation was, the more troublesome it was. But for such an activated formation, the power flow and activation lines were all in Luo Qingtong's eyes. When she replicated it in the future, as long as she had enough energy, she could use it directly. This was a cross-star field formation, which might come in handy in the future. While Luo Qingtong was carefully watching the operation of this formation, Yi Qianxian beside her suddenly glanced at her. The young man silently observed the appearance of this formation, which was also very similar to Luo Qingtong's. The young girl also liked to wander around after arriving at a strange place. Yi Qianxian frowned slightly, wondering what kind of voodoo he was infected with. Before he stayed with Luo Qingtong, it was okay. Even if he knew that she was similar to Luo Qingtong, he didn't feel anything. But now, after staying with her, the more he looked at her, the more she looked like Luo Qingtong. He couldn't suppress his longing for the girl at all. He turned his head and closed his eyes silently. He didn't want to look at Luo Qingtong anymore, so as not to arouse his longing for the girl in his heart. While Luo Qingtong was carefully observing the formation, Yu Mingqian, who was not far from her, also narrowed her eyes slightly. He couldn't delay any longer. If he slowly approached Luo Qingtong like this, he didn't know how long it would take for him to completely gain her trust. Especially after she got together with the man with the white jade mask, she treated him as nothing. If this went on, even after this trip to the abandoned continent, he couldn't ask her about the divine inscriptions. And he couldn't wait any longer. Or, it was the matter of the Central Inscription Association that made him a little impatient. Yu Mingqian's eyes were heavy. He didn't expect Luo Qingtong to be so difficult to approach. He had tried to seduce her, injure himself to gain her confidence, and even stand in front of her when she was in danger. However, she was not moved at all. If she was like this to everyone else, it would be fine. However, she treated the man with the white jade mask differently. This made Yu Mingqian feel as if she had been defeated. Why was that white jade masked man able to get close to Luo Qingtong when they both had bad intentions towards each other? Yu Mingju had been 25 years old since she was born, and she had never suffered such a setback. There was nothing he couldn't get if he wanted it. Yu Mingqian's eyes were cold. She was planning in her mind, but her face was watertight. Even though he was wearing a veiled hat and ordinary people couldn't see his face, he didn't slack off at all. In terms of scheming, he wouldn't lose to anyone. The people of the Red Flame mercenary group didn't disturb Luo Qingtong's observation. They already knew about Luo Qingtong's special ability. They knew that she liked to observe everything. Although they didn't know that it was the ability of her blood pupils, everyone knew that Luo Qingtong was very accurate in seeing things. Therefore, when she was observing things, they never disturbed her. It had become a habit. Chapter 2480. This huge teleportation formation was enough to teleport all of them to the abandoned high-level continent at once without leaving any traces behind. The Tianfeng Chu clan's people were very cautious. They wouldn't give anyone the chance to find out about their whereabouts. Luo Qingtong and the others stood in the teleportation formation. Then, under the power of the Tianfeng Chu clan's experts, they were teleported to an unfamiliar starry sky with a swoosh. There was already a group of Tianfeng Chu clan's experts waiting there. Opposite the experts from the Heavenly Wind Chu clan, there was another group of people who exuded a majestic aura. It seemed that they were the people of another aristocratic family that was competing with the Tianfeng Chu clan. Everyone on both sides was very careful and didn't want to expose their whereabouts. Their auras were restrained. Although their auras were vast and powerful, they didn't give Luo Qingtong and the others too much pressure. Otherwise, with so many experts of the human martial arts realm and even the 9th level of the human martial arts realm standing there, it was enough to suffocate warriors below the human martial arts realm and make it difficult for them to move. Of course, Luo Qingtong was fine. However, she was a warrior who hadn't even reached the venerable realm. It was too surprising that she wasn't pressured by experts above the human martial arts realm. At that time, Luo Qingtong would still have to pretend that she couldn't control herself. If she accidentally overdid it, she would be eliminated and not be allowed to enter the abandoned continent, which would be troublesome. It was good that this would happen. Luo Qingtong breathed a sigh of relief. Then, she quickly pretended to be in awe and shock. She looked at the experts of the Tianfeng Chu clan and the aristocratic family in front of her. She couldn't help it. Everyone else was like this. She couldn't be too maverick. When Chu Ku, Chu Yufei, and the others saw the super experts of the Tianfeng Chu clan appear, a proud and complacent look flashed across their faces. Especially Chu Yufei. She secretly made up her mind that she and her mother would not be kicked out of the Tianfeng Chu clan. Otherwise, how would she be able to enjoy such glory and pride in the future? There wouldn't be a second Tianfeng Chu family that would be willing to hold a lowly girl like her in their palms and protect her like a princess. She made up her mind, and the light in her eyes flowed like the venom of a poisonous snake. The disciples of the Tianfeng Chu clan stepped forward and bowed to the elders. The elders of the Tianfeng Chu family also nodded at them. Then, they looked at the experts of the aristocratic families of the Feishing field on the other side. People of the Lian family of the Flying Star planet. Now that the people of the Tianfeng Chu family are all here, how are your preparations going? Everyone is here. On the other side, the manager of the Lian clan said in a deep voice, "If your Tianfeng Chu clan has no other conditions, then let's begin." As he spoke, he gestured for the disciples of the Lian family to step forward. The group flew towards a huge abandoned continent. From afar, this abandoned high-level continent looked like a giant beast crawling in the starry sky. It was quiet and silent. Luo Qingtong felt that this abandoned continent was completely different from the barren and desolate continent from before. At least that barren and desolate continent still had some life. However, this abandoned continent was like an old man in his twilight years. It was surrounded by a dense aura of death. Chapter 2481. Even if such spiritual energy was absorbed into one's body, it would have no effect on improving one's strength. Because there was no more vitality in it. All it could do was support the use of martial techniques and cultivation methods. It could not be used to improve one's cultivation. Luo Qingtong blinked her eyes. She probably knew why this continent was called the Abandoned Continent. It seemed that it was really an abandoned continent that was no longer suitable for warriors to live in. After everyone arrived at that continent, the people of the Lian clan and the Chu clan circled around the abandoned continent. They swore that the guards of their clan's juniors weren't from their own clan, and that they wouldn't target the other clan's juniors with murderous intent. As a result, the juniors and guards of both clans began to enter the abandoned continent. Luo Qingtong followed behind the people of the Red Flame mercenary group and was sandwiched in the middle. Hu Zhan and the others were tall and strong, and they protected her very well. When she heard the people of the Tianfeng Chu clan say to begin, the disciples of the Tianfeng Chu clan in front of her had already begun to enter the abandoned continent. This was especially true for the top disciples who followed the elders. They were the first to fly into the palace. When Luo Qingtong followed the people of the Red Flame mercenary group and was about to enter, she suddenly heard a commotion in front of her. "Young master, it's the young master. I didn't expect the young master to come. I thought he wouldn't come." "Yes. I heard that the young master and the clan head have an agreement. If he gets the Tian Luo grass this time, the clan can't ask him how to use it. Moreover, the clan head wants to let him go. I don't know what the young master is thinking. Our Tianfeng Chu clan has such good resources and heritage, but he still wants to leave. Should I call him a country bumpkin or a country bumpkin?" The person who said this had a somewhat contemptuous look on his face, but his eyes were filled with a strong sense of jealousy that could not be dispersed. If he had such an opportunity, he would not be willing to give it up. "Isn't that so?" Many people agreed with his words. "But I heard that the young master's brain is a little short-sighted. He is not presentable at all. It's only because he is the only descendant of the clan head that he can become the young master." Someone gloated. "Sigh, it's also because the family head can't see past it. Otherwise, wouldn't Madame Xing be quite good? I think it's not a bad idea to let her be our madam. Yes, it's a pity that the patriarch isn't willing. Moreover, although young master's brain isn't very good, he's very talented." It said that he completely inherited the clan head's bloodline talent. Not long after he returned to the Tianfeng Chu clan, he's already the #1 among the younger generation of the Tianfeng Chu clan. If it were any of you, who would have the ability and talent? Everyone was talking at the same time. There were those who were envious, those who were jealous, and those who were full of admiration. Luo Qingtong listened with great interest. She was curious about the young master of the Tianfeng Chu family. She tried her best to poke her head out of the human wall formed by Hu Zhan and the others to see what the young master of the Tianfeng Chu family looked like. However, Hu Zhan and the others were really burly and tough. Luo Qingtong finally squeezed a little through the gap between them, but she only saw a flash of white light in front of her. In an instant, she swept into the abandoned continent. Chapter 2482. This is, Luo Qingtong's eyes widened. Chu Lingfeng. She looked at Chu Lingfeng, who was riding Snowball. His entire body was tall and sturdy, and he looked extraordinarily handsome. She blinked her eyes. Damn! The young master of the Tianfeng Chu family was this big blockhead. Just as Luo Qingtong's eyes widened, Chu Lingfeng scratched his head. That's strange. Little Shui, did you sense it? Why do I feel like master is nearby? It was said that the sixth sense of a simple-minded person was the most accurate. Chu Lingfeng was like this. Even if he was far away from Luo Qingtong, and Luo Qingtong was mixed in with a group of people. She had changed her appearance and gender, making it difficult for people to recognize her. However, he still had a faint feeling in his heart. That was why he paused when he entered the abandoned continent. However, this feeling came to Chu Lingfeng from time to time. Especially when he had just arrived at the Tianfeng Chu family. Every day, he hoped that master would quickly find him and bring him back, so that his mother wouldn't be worried. Therefore, every once in a while, he would have an illusion that Luo Qingtong had come to find him. Later on, when he was disappointed many times, he learned to restrain himself. His gaze swept over the place where everyone was gathered. He patted Snowball and continued to rush into the abandoned continent. He wanted to get the Tianluo grass. When he brought it back to find his mother and master, they would definitely be very happy. Especially master. This Tianluo grass would definitely greatly improve master's strength. When master became powerful, he and his mother would have someone to rely on. They also wouldn't need to be afraid that the Tianfeng Chu family would find his mother and bully her. Chu Lingfeng's thoughts were actually very simple. When he was weak, he was saved by Luo Qingtong. Then Luo Qingtong saved Yan Yang. In his heart, no one was more powerful than Luo Qingtong. Even if the Tianfeng Chu family praised him as a rare genius of the Tianfeng Chu family and regarded him as their young master. But in his heart, only Luo Qingtong was the most powerful. Even if the girl's strength wasn't as powerful as his, Chu Lingfeng believed that it was only temporary. No one could compare to master's strength and power. These people simply didn't know how powerful master was. This was Chu Lingfeng's thoughts. But when he was at the Tianfeng Chu family, he still didn't mention anything about Luo Qingtong. Otherwise, if people knew that the young lord of the Chu clan had a master, they would definitely go crazy. They would immediately hunt her down and deal with her. Chu Lingfeng didn't want Luo Qingtong to be in danger because of him. So he patiently stayed at the Tianfeng Chu family. First, the Tianfeng Chu family didn't let him leave. Second, he didn't want the Tianfeng Chu family to know about the existence of Luo Qingtong and Yan Yang. Therefore, no matter what the Tianfeng Chu family asked, he didn't pay attention. He only wanted to become stronger. That's right, become stronger. During this time, Chu Lingfeng didn't do anything in the Tianfeng Chu family. He only wanted to become stronger. He didn't have many thoughts, and his brain wasn't very bright. He always remembered what Yen Yang and Luo Qingtong had told him before. That was, if other people asked him something, he shouldn't answer. As for taking advantage, it would be a waste not to take advantage of it. Master said that he couldn't treat himself unfairly anywhere. Chapter 2483. When he becomes strong, he can go back and protect his master and mother. Chu Lingfeng really wants to become strong. When he thought about how he was powerless to face Luo Qingtong and Yen Yang when he was unconscious, his heart ached and he couldn't forgive himself. So when he couldn't go back to the Tianfeng Chu clan, he desperately tried to improve himself. He inherited Chu Tiany's bloodline power. In the entire Chu clan, only he and Chu Tiany had this kind of ability. The Tianfeng Chu clan valued him very much. It was also because of this that he could become the young master of the Tianfeng Chu clan. All of the clan's resources were at his disposal. Whatever he wanted, it was all there. Chu Lingfeng didn't hold back and used all of the Tianfeng Chu clan's resources. He even beat up the younger generation of the Tianfeng Chu clan in order to seize their cultivation resources. In order to become strong, Chu Lingfeng didn't care about anything. What's more, he had no interest in the Tianfeng Chu clan. What did those geniuses think of him have to do with him? If he had the ability, then he would defeat him. If he couldn't defeat him, then the clan's resources would be given to him. What was there to talk about? Master said that if he could solve it with his fists, then there was no need to talk nonsense. If one fist wasn't enough, then two. What's more, the people of the Tianfeng Chu clan weren't good people either. On the surface, they accepted his identity, but behind his back, they called him a bastard. They disliked his birth and despised his mother. Chu Lingfeng once accidentally heard a group of elders talking. They said that if a woman like his mother was found, then they should just give her the position of a concubine. As for the wife of the clan head, that Madame Xing was more suitable. Pay. His mother had suffered so much for him, so how could he let his mother suffer such grievances? Not to mention a concubine, even if his mother didn't want to be the wife of the clan head, he wouldn't let her be. He also wouldn't let the Tianfeng Chu clan find her. Don't think that he didn't know that the Tianfeng Chu family wanted to use his mother to tie him down. As for the man named Chu Tiany, his words were pleasant to hear. He said that he liked his mother and hadn't forgotten her even after so many years. But who knew if he was telling the truth? Moreover, if it wasn't for him, his mother wouldn't have suffered so much because she was pregnant with him, and his family who wouldn't have almost been ruined. Chu Lingfeng thought for a moment. His mother would definitely not want to see him. Therefore, no matter what the other party said, he was too lazy to respond, let alone reveal Yen Yang's existence. When Chu Tiany left the True Spill continent in the past, he hadn't specifically searched for information about the True Spill continent. Thus, he simply couldn't find the existence of the True Spill continent. Once he leaves the abandoned continent, he will be able to return to find his mother and master. Chu Lingfeng rode on Snowball and disappeared into the sky above the abandoned continent. After his figure disappeared, Luo Qingtong recovered from the shock of seeing him. Damn, this news was too exciting. The young master of the Tianfeng Chu clan was actually Chu Lingfeng, that big fool. She was worried that he would be summoned by his father using their bloodline connection, and that he would encounter some bad treatment. Now, it seemed that he was doing very well. As Luo Qingtong thought this, she couldn't help but laugh. Yen Yang had always been very concerned about Chu Lingfeng. Now that she had news of him, she would be able to feel at ease when she returned and told her. The young master of the Tianfeng Chu clan. Chapter 2484. Luo Qingtong frowned. The Tianfeng Chu family attached great importance to Chu Lingfeng, and they would not let him go easily. Moreover, although they attached great importance to Chu Lingfeng, it was because of his talent. They would not be so tolerant to Yen Yang. They might even use her as a tool to restrain Chu Lingfeng. This was a bit troublesome. It was not so easy for Yen Yang to get her son back. But this could wait until later. Yen Yang could also practice now. Once the strength of a soul-sound master was improved, ordinary masters could not compare with her. It was not certain who would look down on whom in the future. Speaking of which, Chu Lingfeng still did not know that Yen Yang could practice. When she entered the abandoned continent and found him, she could give him a surprise. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong's smile deepened. Especially when she thought of Chu Lingfeng, the silly big guy, who just scratched his head and looked around. Did that guy sense her existence, so he ran out to see her? Otherwise, how could he go in and then run out? Sure enough, silly people were particularly sensitive in other aspects. However, Snowball was her contract beast. Why didn't it move? Luo Qingtong did not sense the existence of Snowball herself. Otherwise, she would not have been so surprised when she saw Chu Lingfeng. She thought that the Tianfeng Chu family had used some means to temporarily block the connection between her and Snowball. She did not know whether it was by accident or on purpose. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. Now she already had two little guys, Humph and Tuanzi. In addition, Snowball had been following Chu Lingfeng all the time. It was not impossible for it to contract with Chu Lingfeng. However, she was very unhappy with the way the Tianfeng Chu family did. Did they want to take her contract beast by force? Interesting. If they wanted to take Chu Lingfeng by force, it would be fine. But if they had other ideas, haha, Luo Qingtong sneered. She had known for a long time that these big clans usually had a lot of dirty dealings. It had nothing to do with her in the past, and she didn't want to get involved. But if they really offended her and her people, then don't blame her for being impolite. Luo Qingtong was a person who never suffered a loss. Her mind was racing, but she didn't show it on her face. She just followed the crowd and looked ahead in surprise and excitement. He seemed to be very excited about the appearance of the young master of the Tianfeng Chu family. Everyone around her had the same expression, so it didn't seem out of place. As for Yi Qianxian and the others, their eyes lit up when they saw Chu Lingfeng. Master, it's Chu Lingfeng, the big fool by the evil doctor's side. Bei Qing's voice rang out in Yi Qianxian's mind. Yes. Yi Qianxian responded in a low voice. His eyes lit up as he looked at Chu Lingfeng. Chu Lingfeng had appeared here. If that woman was also here, even if she hid her identity, she would go and meet him, right? When that time came, he would be able to find her. Thinking of this, Yi Qianxian's deep black eyes revealed a hint of joy. When we arrive at the abandoned continent, find a way to find Chu Lingfeng and keep an eye on him. He gave the order. Yes. Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others lowered their heads in excitement, as if they could see the hope of finding the evil doctor in the future. There was no other way. The evil doctor was too good at hiding. They had never seen such a powerful person. They had been searching for him in circles. Chapter 2485. Those noble ladies in Tiandu looked down on the evil doctors, but they didn't know that they were nothing compared to the evil doctors. They were only better than the evil doctors in terms of background and resources. What if they were in the evil doctor's position? They wouldn't even know how they died. Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others were excited, while Yi Qianxian subconsciously looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong. He wanted to see how she would react to Chu Lingfeng's appearance. But to his disappointment, Luo Qingtong's face was filled with excitement, no different from the others. He frowned and looked at Luo Qingtong for a while, then turned his head away. Yi Qianxian didn't know why he was so obsessed. He kept thinking that Luo Qingtong was Luo Xiaoqi. He had already checked her identity, but he still didn't give up. He pressed his forehead and decided to draw a line with her after they arrived at the abandoned continent, so that he wouldn't always have these inexplicable thoughts. Anyway, Chu Lingfeng had already appeared. If Luo Qingtong wanted to take part in this operation, she would definitely show up. As for Luo Xiaoqi, she had nothing to do with him. As Yi Qianren thought of this, she closed her eyes again. The Tianfeng Chu family and the Lian family of Flying Star acted very quickly. After the top disciples rushed in, it was Chu Xiaofeng's turn. This was also to prevent anyone from attacking the top disciples of the two families. Moreover, those who entered first would have the advantage. There was no problem in arranging the order of entry according to one's identity. Okay, let's go. When it was Chu Xiaofeng's turn, he said to Luo Qingtong, Yi Qianxian, and the others. Follow me closely. Don't act on your own. When we get there, I'll tell you some simple information. In order to prevent any mistakes or omissions in this operation. The Tianfeng Chu family didn't mention anything about the abandoned continent. Everything was left to the people of Mercenary City to explore. Of course, the children of the Tianfeng Chu family had some information in their hands. For the sake of their own safety, they would also inform the mercenaries around them of the information that they knew. As for how much the children of the Tianfeng Chu clan knew, it depended on how high their status was. There is no doubt that some people know more and some know less. As for Chu Ku and Chu Yufei, one was from the direct line of descent, while the other was Madame Xing's daughter. Even if his current status was not as high as before, he still knew far more than Chu Xiaofeng. Especially Chu Yufei. The amount of information she knew was comparable to those top disciples. Now that Chu Ku was with her, she knew a lot of things that she didn't know before. At this moment, she sneered at Luo Qingtong and the others and said, "That's right. Just follow him obediently. Don't lose your life because of it." You must know that this high-level abandoned continent used to have extremely high energy. There are many demon beasts and spirit plants living inside. Although there are many opportunities, the danger is 10 against 10. You must be very careful. As she spoke, she snorted lightly. Her gaze swept past Yi Qianxian, then she raised her head arrogantly and said, "Of course, if you beg me, perhaps I will take you with me." You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.